Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Catch Up Courts. I go by the name of Hines, your friendly neighborhood catch-up man. Thank you ever so much for tuning back in for another live stream. We have been covering the Nicholas Kassotis trial since day one. You can catch up on all of those in the playlist, and the trial, in my opinion, has reached its climax. In fact, I think it's reached the point in which the pot has essentially boiled over, and we got to see what I believe was an unbelievable testimony. I was actually in shock listening to all that came out, if I'm being honest with you. And this is going to be another extended stream, like we did on day 6. You can go watch that. I've left the link is in the description. It is going to be an extended stream, but I'm gonna do my best to speed through and not keep it too long, because we're gonna go through the cross-examination as well as that testimony. In fact, I had the mind to just let it run and not care since, but to the ethos of this channel, I really wanna keep to the key parts that I feel is very necessary to the theory of the case for both the defense and the prosecution. But before we go into Nicholas Kassotis' testimony, because he was the only witness that was testifying in his defense, before we do go into that, I want to go through all of the day 6 testimony. Let's just recap on the case so far. Because on day 6 we saw 5 witnesses go up to essentially give testimony. If you don't know about the background of the case, Nicholas Kassotis has been accused of killing, murdering, and dismembering his ex-wife. Not ex-wife, his wife Mindi Kassotis. The prosecution essentially is arguing that essentially argues that he was on the run for 1.5 million from his ex-wife. So all of the movements that the testimony that has been offered, all of those movements were down to him being on the run, not because he was in fear. However, the defense are saying that Nicholas was actually living in fear because of Jim McIntyre, who was supposed to be keeping him safe, who came into his life when he was receiving threats, etc. So that's why he was on the run and moving around a lot, which we have heard all through this trial. So that's essentially the background of the case. On day 6, hello Ruth Ann, welcome to the stream. I hope that you are that you're having a good day. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will do my best to to give as much recap today. Give as much updates as possible today. But to go back to what I was saying, we're now gonna go into the day 6 recap. You can go watch the full recap in the description, but just to give you an idea of what happened on day 6 of trial, Chris Zaplak, his name is very hard to pronounce, but he was a friend of Nicholas. He was in the army with him. They even discussed trial strategy. He was a lawyer with him as well. He basically gave testimony in regards to finding out that Mindi had died. In regards to finding out that Mindi was pregnant, and how he was the one that was basically told the FBI, not the FBI, sorry, law enforcement, when they were investigating this case, that the information that he had was likely material for them. So when he found out from the press release that Mindi had died, so that was the testimony from, well, there was more to it. You can go on the day 6 recap to know. But anyway, moving on, Angela Wynn was the next witness up on day 6, and she was Mindi's best friend. She essentially relayed a lot of the testimony that was given by the parents of Mindi, as well as the other friends, that they were living in fear, and essentially they were on the run a lot. And yeah, that was the bulk of her testimony from what I can recall. Joseph West, who was an attorney that was working with Mindi, he basically, the main part of his testimony that came out was the fact that Nicholas had called him out of the blue, basically emailed him first and called him out of the blue, and said that Mindi had unfortunately passed away from an infection. We went through all of the timeline yesterday, and we're gonna go through again the timeline again today. But essentially, that was Joseph West's testimony. On Cameron Nelson, who was Nick's friend, longtime friend, gave a lot, and I mean a lot of testimony. She gave testimony around their desire to be moving around and packing stuff and all of those things. She gave testimony about how Nick had told her that Mindi had passed away from, I believe she said it was a stroke or something like that. I believe maybe she said it was a stroke. She passed away on, and he informed her on the 5th, informed her that he had received Mindi's ashes, and it was just a lot. She testified to even loaning Nick a credit card, giving him a credit card, and essentially he racked up the bill to the amount of $198,000, and he never got a penny. She is now even pursuing legal action against him, and he was moving, and they're trying to take him to court. There was so much here. And then you have Eva Thomas, who was Nicholas' first wife, who gave testimony. We said on the last stream that her and Nick belong together, in my opinion, because they just seem to move on really quickly. They just seem to just fall in love extremely quickly. Even when they met, they were pretty much married in like a month or two. The testimony was around. They divorced in October. According to her testimony, that I thought was really material was how Nick was the one to have negotiated the settlement of up to 1.5 million. He actually agreed to it. Another material testimony was how Nick was saying in court that he has 32 million, and essentially he is not going to pay it. That he does have the money to pay it, he's just not going to pay it, and the judge had admonished him that he was going to hold him in contempt if he wasn't going to pay. So we heard that testimony, which did aid the prosecution theory on why he was essentially running around and moving around a lot. So we also heard testimony in regards to her getting pregnant after testifying that it was difficult for her to actually get pregnant, and how Nick was feeling a bit upset about that. So then we heard from Tracy Sands, who basically brought every evidence back. I thought the cross-examination that was key from that I said on day 6, that I even said then, and said him testifying to have not received a report in regards to the fingernails being taken by the medical examiner, because the state is alleging that there was a struggle, because there were defensive wounds. According to the medical examiner Keith Lamarte's testimony, that there was defensive wounds on Mindi. So it would have been really key actually to test those fingernails, and they didn't have that. So I thought that was a really good a really good fact to highlight in the cross. He also highlighted the camera as well. So yeah, so that's the bulk of day 5 of day 6. Sorry, not day 5, day 6. What happened with the witness on day 6. We are now on to day 7, and it was just one witness. He was the main man himself. We have theorized from day 5 that he was likely going to take the stand, but a lot of you were saying no, he shouldn't take the stand. And I really think that Doug had probably persuaded him numerous times not to do it. He probably told him, no, what we have right now is enough to get you might be enough to get you away from this murder conviction, because they still don't have the key evidence tying you right back. They don't have anything in regards to your DNA. Even when they found some DNA, he may have been having those conversations, but that didn't matter because he said, I'm going to testify. So they done their usual motion. Well, it's not called motion to dismiss, but it's just to say that the state did not prove the charges worthy to be given to a trial of fact. It's pretty much routine, but the judge obviously rejected it, and now we are here. So like I said, I had the mind to just let it run, and then we're gonna be here all day. But even though this is an extended recap, and I did say that I will warn everyone in regards to doing an extended recap or a long recap, I'm gonna do my best to try and go as quick as possible, because I want to go to that closing statements as well, closing arguments as well, because I felt like the way that this case wound down is very interesting. The shifts and the many trial strategy that has been employed here. So I have a lot to say, but anyway, let's go right into Nicholas Kassotis' testimony. He basically gave his background in regards to when he was in the army. So we got the idea that he was actually trying a lot of cases for the army. He was working for the legal department. He was a prosecutor in the army. Didn't prosecute murder cases, which kind of makes sense now, because I don't know which day it was, but I did make the comment that it's kind of weird for a prosecutor to have any murder cases at all. But he essentially gave background and said he was actually a prosecutor in the army, and they were mainly prosecuting sexual crimes and drug offenses and all of those type of offenses. They were not essentially looking for that. They were not essentially prosecuting murder cases regularly in the army. So he also gave testimony in regards to him pursuing an LLN, and also looking at the LLN was specializing in cyber security and compliance, so he was doing the legal area around that. And he then says that his army, that he had ceased working in the army in the fall of 2019. This was because Mindi was having health issues. So that was why that was why he ceased working in the army. He basically told them that. He also gave testimony that on September 26, 2009, that he was married to Heather Bassett, which is Heather, the Ever that we heard on day 6, and he said that she was telling people publicly that they were not going to last. They met on Harmony. He didn't really say that, but I'm recalling Ever's testimony. But and she said that she was taking medications to help her get pregnant. So yeah, that was one of the testimony, that she said that she's having difficulties having children, but she was taking medication that would essentially help. And then he says that it turned out that she wasn't actually taking the medication when they were together. So again, I will smirk a bit. I will smirk quite a bit as I'm going through this, because you will find out why it's kind of hard to navigate what's the truth with this guy and what's fake with this guy. He also gave testimony that he had saw Ever give a Facebook message while receiving a Facebook message from another guy. So this is going into the idea that she was basically being not being lawful with him. Hello Lexi Delorno, welcome. And so let me continue. He also testifies to meeting Mindi. It was online as well. OkCupid. He seems to have a pattern that I've noticed, that he likes to meet these girls online. So he met Mindi online on OkCupid. He says it was on the 18th of September 2015, and they were already talking about marriage. It wasn't finalized until the next year. So that was his testimony. He testified that that Heather had filed a complaint against him, and he had essentially agreed to pay the 1.5 million judgment, and says that the payment was made on his behalf. So that's what he said, that the payment was made on his behalf. He gave testimony. He gave testimony that in mid 2017, key here, that Mindi had noticed errors going through her accounts, and he would notice because Mindi was the one that was taking care of her accounts. Hello, Lady Draconis, welcome to the stream. Happy to have you here once again. I remember you from the Depth We Heard days, if I'm not mistaken, as well as I think Laura Owens as well. I believe I remember seeing you on there. Welcome. But the going back to the testimony, the key part that I want to play is this vandalism that he said that he has suffered in I believe it was in late 2017, and how they had a brief reprieve of he basically said that they had a brief reprieve of the harassment that they were receiving. So he suffered vandalism. So let's just go to that testimony. This is the father. I felt so bad for the parents, but let's just continue.
Sometime in late 2017, we'd seen kind of a brief reprieve where we thought that things had, our bank had fixed the issues, that things were no longer going wrong, and suddenly it kind of restarted with a lot more than it had before, and we also started seeing vandalism at our house. I would sometimes get anonymous emails stating, that I was going to be hurt or killed. Our mail would go missing, things of that nature.
Did you ever report that to any law enforcement?
I did.
Who did you report that to?
I reported that to the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
How did you report it to the FBI?
On their website somewhere, they had a, report a crime, and I filed a complaint there, and I believe Mindi also filed a complaint there.
Where were you living at the time?
I was living at 3805 Adrian Drive in Alexandria, Virginia. That was the house that Heather and I had purchased while we were married, and I continued living there after the dissolution of our marriage. And then later, when I met Mindi and she moved in, we lived in that house.
Did you report it to the Alexandria Police Department?
I did not.
What county is Alexandria in?
Virginia is a little strange, but there is an Alexandria City part of Alexandria, which is, so they are their own county, and then there is a Fairfax County part of Alexandria, which is where I lived.
Did you report it to any county law enforcement?
I did not.
What happened after?
I'm sorry, can I say why? The mail, my understanding, was a federal crime, as well as the banking issues, and since they all seemed, I imagine that they were all connected, I did not think going to local law enforcement would accomplish anything except for a police report.
It sounds plausible, but honestly, I know I'm gonna zoom through this and highlight the key parts that I thought was really important. But in all fairness, you can pretty much, I thought every part of this testimony was key. I do implore you, if you do get time, maybe over the weekend, the links are in the description. Head over to the trial channel and watch. I'm pretty sure she will have it up. She always has her videos up really quickly, and I'm pretty sure she will have this testimony up. You can watch it without all the breaks, and so it's definitely worth a watch. It's definitely worth a watch, but I'll do my best to try and cover as much key aspects that I feel is really relevant to this case as it continues. But remember what he's saying here. He is saying here that he contacted law enforcement. Sorry, he contacted the FBI because he felt that he thought it was of a financial nature. So he thought that the FBI would have been a better fit to deal with it because, the vandalism and the money going missing in the accounts, that was the main reason. But this all happened in 2017, and this was the late 2017.
I think because of the both some of the underlying facts of the case. I wasn't involved in the underlying facts of the case, but several Marines were killed in Afghanistan by a corrupt Afghan police officer. There were some very salacious, awful personal details about him and crimes he committed against children. And it had to do with emailing classified information. That was the case that came to me, was this Marine who had retained and then emailed in unclassified form classified information. And for any of you who remember the 2016 election, that was a big issue about who was putting what on unclassified emails. So I think that kind of the timing, a couple of months before that election, it was.
So he was alleging that he had some press attention because the Washington Post had apparently made a post where he was quoted, and it was about sending confidential documents to some people in Afghanistan or something like that. I looked everywhere for Nicholas Kassotis around that time period. Couldn't find anything. Could not find anything. I don't know, but I will give him the benefit of the doubt. My research skills probably sucks. It probably sucks. In fact, it could be the worst. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps he's telling the truth. Perhaps this is the reason why the FBI were taking his case seriously. Let's continue watching.
It was a perfect storm to get some press attention.
How, if at all, did that press attention affect you at the time?
At the time, I was in the process of applying to jobs. I'd actually had a third or fourth interview at a position I believed I was going to get, and very suddenly was not even being contacted anymore by them.
Okay, let's move back forward to the vandalism that you were experiencing. What type of vandalism was that?
Nails in our tires, a broken window, things of that nature. I mean, we wouldn't even move our cars some days, and it would have a new hole in the tire.
Was there any result of you making this report to the FBI?
Yes, there was.
What happened?
I contacted I tried to contact a former colleague who worked with the Department of Justice. I hoped that it would get us out of the bin of everybody's complaints and a bit more attention. I wasn't sure if I had managed to contact him, just because of his job. He keeps a very low profile. But several days later, I got a call at work. This was when I was working as a civilian at the Board for Correction and Naval Records, and Mindi said that an FBI agent had come to the house.
He had contacted someone, his friend. He doesn't even know if he contacted a friend, but he has a friend in the FBI bureau. I doesn't know if he had contacted to basically oversee this report. And Jim McIntyre was the one that essentially turned up, and Mindi had spoken with him. Oh God. just honestly, I want to highlight this as well, because I watched the Robert Tillis trial. I covered that on my, I had a second channel, is now defunct. Anyway, point is, I covered that trial, and I was quite surprised at his testimony. It was kind of fantastical, but there was a strategy that I noticed in that case, and that was allowing, or his counsel asking the judge to basically allow a narrative testimony. And I'm really glad that Doug didn't do that here, that he just kept it to Q&A so that he can at least set a structure so that people can follow. And I feel like what Doug did in regards to this particular with Nick, because I do think he's likely a difficult client. I actually get that impression from hearing his testimony, but I still think that he at least, based on his Q&A style, he at least kept it cohesive that you can actually follow, rather than try and get a narrative style. If there was a conversation about strategy, I pretty much think Doug would have actually made this made sure that he done it his way. So I don't think never mind. Jim McIntyre is the bane of my existence. Honestly, I think he's real.
What did you?
I actually think Jim McIntyre is real, and I will show you who I believe Jim McIntyre to be very soon.
After learning that an FBI agent had come to the house?
I asked her what they had talked about. She said that he was there in regards to what had been happening to us, that he would be returning in the near future. I don't recall everything. It's been, 7 years. I'm not sure exactly what she told me that day versus what I learned shortly thereafter.
What was the name given by the FBI agent?
Jim McIntyre.
What happened next with respect to Jim McIntyre?
He came back a couple days later.
Did you meet with him at that time?
I did.
Tell us about that.
He came to the house. I believe he had called to schedule it to make sure that I was going to be home at the time. He seemed very thorough, very professional. He wanted to know everything that had happened. He wanted copies of the emails that we had received. He wanted specific issues with the banks. I believe we printed out screenshots of the charges that showed what had been going on, and we provided all that to him. And he said that it was something he took seriously, and that he would be investigating it.
So some random individual shows up at your house, says he's with the FBI, and claims to be a man named Jim McIntyre. What did you do to verify that information?
I didn't verify it. Mindy believed that she had seen a badge, or she told me at the time that she'd seen a badge. I had no reason to doubt that he was who he said he was. It didn't cross my mind that somebody else could have shown up at my house at that time. I like Doug that he basically went to, he didn't stay away from any facts. He did not stay away from the bad or the good facts. He just asked the question, got it on record. But the fact that it's always Mindi seeing the important credential, and he's not the one that's seeing it. He could have said himself, I saw his badge. I saw him, and I really believe it was who he said he was, because he gave me all that I needed to see. He showed me this, he showed me that. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, that was the meeting of Jim McIntyre. He also gave testimony about getting a job at APIS, and he said that he got this job at APIS due to the Washington Post article. Let's listen. But before I do, if people are wondering who Jim McIntyre is, this is who Jim McIntyre is. In my opinion, he has been in the courtroom the entire time. This is who he is. Do you see him? Do you see him? If you're wondering who Jim McIntyre is and you can't see him after the evidence I presented to you, I'm sorry. Maybe you're just not cut out for this internet sleuthing, because I did all this work to find out who Jim McIntyre is. He is telling the truth. This man is real. If you can't see him at this point, then I don't know. I don't know for you. Because the evidence is quite clear there. He is. Anyway, people don't believe Ketchup Man anyway, so people don't believe Heinz. People, anyway. But there you go. I've shown you my evidence of Jim McIntyre. I dare you to show me any counter evidence that goes against that, because in my opinion, he is 100% real. Let's continue. Some attention that I was from a overseas hacking group of some sort that was targeting members of the military. He said that we should relax somewhat because he believed that the local vandalism and things of that nature were likely something they were paying kids to do or something of that nature. We were not in real danger. It was meant to be harassing us, and that he was continuing to investigate it.
Do you recall the approximate time or date that Jim McIntyre initially showed up and you had this conversation?
This was sometime in late 2017.
So, again, same time, same consistent. He says late 2017 he showed up, and that time has not changed.
Did you eventually leave your civilian job with the Navy?
Yes, I left my civilian job in February of 2018.
What did you do at that point in time for work?
At that point, I believed I was being employed by a software company that he had connected me to, that Jim McIntyre had connected me to.
What software company did you believe you were employed by?
The name changed multiple times over the years that I believe I worked there. The ending name was Apis Limited.
So this company changed names all the time.
Which I believe is the Latin word for bee or something like that.
Well,
like a bumblebee or a honeybee.
do you know why Jim McIntyre would help you find a job?
Yeah, I believed that he was helping me because of our situation, that he knew people, which is not uncommon, private sector and the government on criminal, especially cyber investigations, often have to work very hand in hand. And as I had talked to him, and I was hoping to find something that would allow me to work from home, because despite his reassurances that he did not think at that time we were in real danger, I was very uncomfortable leaving Mindi home alone. We had suffered a very serious car accident. She had a lot of health issues following that, and leaving my frail wife at home by herself when we're undergoing this was something that really bothered me.
When you were working for this company that eventually becomes Apis Limited, where were you working from?
I was working from home.
So this was remote work?
This was remote work.
Where were they headquartered?
I believe they were headquartered in Colorado at the time. Though I believe they were incorporated in Wyoming. I saw some incorporation documents, and that's not uncommon. Wyoming does not have a corporate income tax, the same way that most large corporations are headquartered in Delaware.
Oh my God.
Because of the laws.
What was your role within Apis Limited?
I was an attorney, kind of a general counsel role, though it carried with it a lot of kind of other stuff. Sometimes I would be called on to help look through data, records that were being generated by the software.
What was the nature of their business?
The nature of their business was AI software development, basically using artificial intelligence software to analyze data and find connections between it.
Were you doing any coding for them at this time?
Very little. Sometimes I would be asked to look at something. I do have somewhat of a coding background, but it was not something that I was called on regularly to do because, frankly, there were other people who were much better at it than me. I think, sometimes there are situations where everybody else knows too much about a problem, and somebody who's looking at it with fresh eyes can help, but very rarely was I asked to look at any coding.
Were you still with this company in 2019?
Yes, I was. Sorry.
And that's about the same time that Heather is coming, finally bringing it to a head to collect this divorce obligations that you've failed to perform?
Yes.
Okay, so if you thought that was crazy, so we got the background. This was before all of the divorce. So he had met Jim McIntyre at this point. Then Eva comes into the scene and he gave testimony that he was getting paid with stock options at Apis. He thought it was too good to turn down, that he thought it was just too good to be true, that he was getting stock options for Apis, and he was receiving assurances from Jim McIntyre about the security of his money. He also says that Jim had advised him that he would receive money if Heather was involved in any crime against him. But if she wasn't, then he would have to pay, which is why he basically negotiated the settlement that way, and he believed he had the 1.5 million. So based on the advice from Jim, of course, if she was involved in a crime, you wouldn't have to pay that amount. That's what he says that Jim advised him, and it turned out that Heather was actually not involved in a crime, so Jim had wired the money. That's what he says had happened, that Jim had paid on his behalf. So he goes on to say that he was working at APIS for about 12 to 15 hours a day while he was at Charlottesville, and that Jim had set it up for him. He says that he was assaulted at his home. I thought that this testimony was, in my opinion, this was why they started moving. That testimony in regards to being assaulted at home was why they started moving, and he says that the assault was likely financially motivated based on the windfall he was going to receive. So I'm guessing word got out that he had 35 million somewhere from court. At least that's the inference I got from this testimony, that word got out in court, and he somehow was getting assaulted this day. He also, this was around the time of this whole divorce. He also says that he was assaulted. He also says that Jim McIntyre was the one to have set up the hospital visit for him. So he didn't go to a natural hospital for this assault, that Jim McIntyre was the one that done it. He also gave testimony that Jim McIntyre has access to all of his funds, and he said that he didn't believe that the FBI was using the funds to basically get all these things for him, that Jim McIntyre had access to all of his funds. What I'm guessing here is that they're setting up, at least in his mind, the theory is he was actually being scammed. He wasn't he was a victim of fraud, basically. That's what I'm getting here. That's how he was able to get the rentals and move and was able to move around. He also says that he had moved 15 to 20 times in a 6-month period, and he says that he had plastic bins that was delivered to him by Jim McIntyre to help with the moving, and he says that he had a vehicle called Chirato. I thought it was called that. I didn't quite get the make and model, but it's quite interesting that he mentions the vehicle, and yet for some reason there is no talk of the vehicle, how he got rid of the vehicle. I'm guessing he probably mentioned this vehicle so that he can explain away why he had to buy a new vehicle, but he never got to that. We never heard of this vehicle ever again, just that he bought a new vehicle downright. And we're going to get to that testimony and the details around that, because I thought it was interesting on trial that he mentioned having a vehicle back when they were moving around Charlottesville or Alexandria. But yeah, he also says that he had no idea how Jim had access to the credit card that Cameron Nelson had given him. He says that that he gave Jim access to everything. So did Mindi. He says that he even had access to the home. He was given a spare key, and he was also given the alarm code to his house. He says that Jim had mirrored the Signal app to his work computer. Let's go to that testimony, because I felt like this was quite interesting. What had happened here?
That he had, at this point, our mail, we had initially moved our mail to a post office because of the constant issues we had getting our mail. You know, it would just, sometimes for days we would not get any mail, and then we would get things that slipped through that said, well, you haven't paid this bill that we hadn't received. Shortly before we left, we moved our mail to a service down in Florida that would scan it and hold on to it for you, let you know what it was. So he had access to that. All of our social media, both of our social media, you know, anything from Reddit to Twitter to Instagram to Facebook. He also had our Signal. So Signal is a encrypted messaging app. I know we've heard a little talk about it. You can mirror Signal from your phone to a computer, so that you could use either the phone or the computer. He had us mirror our Signal accounts to I thought professional computers of his, so that he could monitor those conversations as well.
Okay. I'll ask.
I thought that testimony was really interesting for a couple of reasons, because I don't want to nitpick everything, but I just think it's an interesting slip that he says it was personal computer, and then he could call himself and said that actually it was professional. He was maybe. I think the lady picked up on it as well. If that's why she was smiling, I have no idea if that's why she's smiling. But I thought it was quite interesting that he said personal, because now he's basically saying that he is Jim McIntyre doing the Signal. At least that was the impression I got, but I thought that was quite interesting to hear. He
You to just slow down just a little bit to make sure the court reporter gets everything.
Yes, sir.
So eventually you leave Hilton Head, correct?
Yes, in late May of 2020, Mindi had a large argument with her brother, and then a smaller argument with her parents, and said that she didn't feel like she wanted to stay in the area anymore. And Jim asked us how we felt about Charleston, South Carolina. So
testimony was important here, in my opinion, because all of this time moving for, it just gives the idea, and I think it did help, at least from, even if you don't believe the fantastical stories, it always left the impression with me, why would he move all of this time, do all of these things with Mindi, and then goes ahead and kills her anyway 4 years down the line, after they have already been moving, even have a track. Even if people say that Mindi was saying that her life was in danger, I have so many thoughts, but I do think in regards to this moving and the family issue, I think what he was trying to say here, or what he was trying to introduce, that there's something that the family probably learned that he probably just doesn't want to. This is why I'm giving him the benefit of doubt. As I'm going to not to, even though I know is the inconsistencies, I'm giving the benefit of doubt, because you would think if someone is out to lie, they would be smearing everyone else. He's not doing that. He's not even saying that I believe they were after me. I believe that Mindi's family was after me. I believe the people that he's actually saying are after him was his family, and he lied to his family about being adopted, etc. So we heard testimony regarding that. To me, it's bizarre. To me, it's really bizarre that he would do all this, and that has always stuck with me when I was listening to his testimony. But let's continue on. He says that when they were in Charleston only for a week, they were in Charleston and they were there for a short period of time, a week, he said, and says that Mindi was sick. Thanks for joining, Lady Draconis replay crew. You have company. So if you're watching this back on replay, make sure that you let me know how you're feeling in the comments, and also don't forget to hit that like button if you are here watching live with me, or even on replay. It will help us out with the YouTube algorithm. But let me go back to my comment in regards to what he said here in regards to the health issues, and he says that Jim McIntyre at this point had essentially taken Mindi to hospital, he was taking care of Mindi, who was having health issues at this point. So this was 2020. This is the first time that February 2020. He said this was the first time that we hear of Mindi starting to have health issues. He says that Jim had told him that he had signed up for Medicaid in 2020 as well, and he says that he moved to Beaufort for 8 months. This is likely when Frank and those guys came into the picture, but I'll continue. But anyway, he moved to Beaufort for 8 months. All of this because he was fearful for his life. Continuing on, he says that in April 2020, that Cameron had messaged him saying that she was not going to continue paying him. And this was when he learned that Jim McIntyre, you know what, let's just go straight to the testimony because my jaw dropped at this moment. It just, and I will explain why my jaw dropped at this moment.
Mid to late February of 2021.
Where did you stay in Beaufort?
Again, we moved regularly, probably another 15 to 20 places there.
And how did you procure those places to reside?
Mr. McIntyre procured those places.
Okay.
Now at this time we had learned that Miss Nelson was paying for those places.
How did you learn that?
In April, so 2020 was the COVID year. In April, she had sent.
She is who?
Cameron Nelson had sent Mindi and I a message saying that because her husband runs restaurants, and at the time it looked like all restaurants might be shutting down for the foreseeable future, that she would not be able to keep paying for our rentals if things did not change quickly.
Did you learn at that time exactly how much money she had lent you up to this point?
I had not, no. I was livid. It was at this time that we learned that Mr. McIntyre was not a federal agent.
How did you learn that?
I had a conversation with him as to why this was, why he was charging a friend of mine's card. Why wasn't there, either coming from our own money or some sort of official fund. Why this was happening. And I made some reference to wanting to speak to his superior, and he said, Nick, I'm not an FBI agent. Why would you think that?
Did you continue to maintain your relationship with him after you found out about this?
We did, after following, probably the worst argument that Mindi and I ever had.
What was that argument about?
He moved us in the days after that to a rental that we were not happy with. At this point, we were living with Mindi's father and mother, Betsy and Frank III, as well as Matthew, the youngest brother. He had moved us to a rental that we were not happy with, but for the first time, we actually had a rental agreement that showed how long the rental had been paid for. It was a different company than I think that they were normally procured through. So for the first time, we knew that we had, I forget if it was a week or a week and a half, and I said this is, we shouldn't be dealing with this anymore. Like we have a week or a week and a half. We've got to figure out a plan. We've got to, cut ties with Jim. Like I feel like I've been lied to for years.
But you didn't cut ties with Jim, correct?
We did not. No, Mindi felt that Jim was our, our angel. She said, he had made mistakes, but we would be in the position to fix all those mistakes. And if we stopped working together, then who knows, if his resolve to see this end in our favor was going to go away. What would we be doing in the meantime? Actually, she when I said, I think we can figure this out, but she got out of our truck and walked all the way to her brother's house. It was like 5 or 6 miles.
So he finds out that Nick is not an FBI agent. Yet Mindi says that he's made mistakes, but we should continue being with him, despite him not being an FBI agent, by the way. How do you say that he's not an FBI agent and continue to just say that he's an FBI agent? Like, basically give the idea that he's an FBI agent, but let's just continue on. Because I think that this moment was the moment that is just, if you really believe that Jim exists, it's probably dead at this point. It's gone. Like, there's no way that you would think that Jim was behind all of this? There is no way, because he's the FBI agent. He's the one that set you up with Apis. He says that he's an Apis employee. He didn't really say that, because I've said that in previous streams that Jim is just likely an Apis employee. And the streams was based on his interview with the police that Jim was an Apis employee. He gave that interview on the 12th of May, that he was an Apis employee, that he was the one that got him the job there, that he was an Apis employee. Now he says that I'm not an FBI agent. So that story that he gave to law enforcement now, I mean, it now has a bit of life. But it's just, he's like, so if I was to believe him for the truth and just take it on as truth, as face value, it seems likely that Jim had told him, I'm not an FBI agent, I'll only work for Apis. Who the FBI agents set you up with? I'm trying. Oh, I really, you know what? I'm very sorry, Elaine Bretterhoft, for making fun of you. It must have been really difficult to work with the facts that you had. But anyway, moving on. So he gave a story in regards to Frank IV and how they moved into his home for 16 months. So if we were to accelerate the time, April 2020 was when they had the conversation with Jim. Sometime in April 2020, I believe, you know what, let me not say that, but sometime in April 2020, they had moved for 16 months. So 10, I'm not great at maths, but let's just 12 months would be April 2021. Then 4 months on top of April 2021, you would arrive at, wait, the math is right there, right? 4 plus is 16. So yeah. Anyway, 4 months after April would be April, May, June, July, August. So August 2021, he had moved out, or he was evicted from Frank IV's home. But on the testimony, he says that the eviction actually happened in June 2022. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. The months thing is not relevant. He didn't give an exact date and then change the date as it went on. He probably had the wrong estimation. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for that one. They had moved essentially to Yakinto Hotel after that eviction. But let's hear the story in regards to why he was evicted and what was going on at Frank IV's home.
Betsy and Frank III, correct?
Yes.
When did you first live with them?
This would have been April, right around the time of the COVID shutdowns, the first COVID shutdown. So late March, early April of 2020, Frank III had a knee surgery, and he was living with Frank IV at the time, but given that entire house is on 3 levels and the living levels are all a full level up in the air from the garage area, then he was not going to be able to get up those stairs following his surgery and was not going to be able to maneuver around the house following the surgery. So we asked Mr. McIntyre to ensure that we had a 1-level rental that had enough bedrooms, and Frank and Betsy came, and Matthew came as well, I think.
Jim McIntyre is not an FBI agent.
He was a high school kid. I think he kind of enjoyed sleeping somewhere away
Jim McIntyre told him he's not an FBI agent.
From home.
So what was the point where you were living with Frank IV, in Frank IV's home?
That was not until the following February.
Okay. So you leave Beaufort, South Carolina, February of 2021, correct?
Yes.
And then where do you go?
We go to Frank IV's house in Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Okay, key thing. Okay, they did move. That does add up with a timeline. That will be 16 months, 10 months, 12 months. Doing the math again. Moving from February 2021, to Beaufort, to Frank the Fourth's house, moving from the parents' house. I think baby said their parents live. Anyway, moving on and going with his maths, it actually does add up. It actually does add up to June 2022.
How long are you at Frank the Fourth's house?
16 months. We leave in June of 2022.
How much were you paying him to stay there?
We were not paying him to stay there.
Did you feel like a freeloader?
I absolutely did.
Why didn't you pay him any money to stay in his home?
We had no money to pay him.
I thought you have a job with Apis Limited.
Yes, that job, I was told was generating money, but we did not have a bank account at this point. We did not have access to any of these funds. We asked multiple times for Jim to send money to Frank to offset the cost. We understood that there was food, there was dog food, involved in this, but he said he always said he would look into it, and then he would always say, if I do this, it's potential that somebody's going to learn where you are.
Jim is not an FBI agent.
Why did you leave Frank the Fourth's home?
He filed to evict us from the home.
Why did he have to take that step?
I didn't think he had to take the step, but there had been a lot of discussions about when we were leaving. We would be given a date, then the date would pass, and I think he got tired. He got tired of waiting.
When did you eventually leave Frank the Fourth's home?
I believe it was June of 2022.
And where did you go after you left Frank the Fourth? Oh, let me go back to Frank the Fourth's home. Who all was living in Frank the Fourth's home at the time you were living there?
Yeah, it was myself and Mindi. Betsy, Mindy's mom, was living there the entire time we were there, as well as Frank the Fourth and his wife Megan and their daughter Harper, who had been born in late 2020. I think September 2020, if memory serves. At some point, Frank the Third also moved into the house after we had been there maybe 6 to 9 months. I don't remember the exact date. Matthew never lived there. Matthew had finished high school in Dublin, Georgia, and while he visited, multiple times, he then was going to a junior college somewhere in Georgia.
When you left in June of 2022, where did you? Oh, let me go back. At this time, when you were living with Frank the Fourth, again, was there any of this weirdness, strangeness that you described going on then? No, actually, this was the safest place we had felt in some time, both because of Frank the Fourth's background, the security at the house, and the setup of where the house was located. And very briefly, what is Frank the Fourth's background?
He's a police officer.
So I thought that this testimony was really he was really key. He was really key for his theory, at least for his third-party culprit theory. Even if we got there with broken tires and anything like that, I still think that the fact that he was trying to give the impression that Frank had this pristine house that has so much security that they felt safe there. Wouldn't Jim disappear at this point? Like, let's say that he didn't say that Jim was an FBI agent. Let's just put it all out to the window, given the benefit of the doubt onto this point. Why is Jim still in the picture when they were at a secure location? Giving him the benefit of the doubt, let's say that it wasn't as secure. He felt safe there, so he probably told Jim, I do feel safe here. Jim was like, okay, cool. Don't worry. Don't worry then. Let me know if anything happens, as it basically goes on. But because he got evicted, essentially Jim comes back into the picture. He got evicted. Bessie paid for the hotel that they were staying at. He also says that the funds took that, they moved into the Airbnb property after Betsy had paid for a less expensive Yakinto hotel. The one thing I noticed in Hoy's testimony is how he would add these Extra facts. Hello, Alana. Welcome to the stream. You and I are up very late today. So, yeah, it's quite late today. But anyway, one thing I noticed as he gave his testimony in regards to all of this is the fact that he just keeps adding so much fact to like try and sell the idea. I mean, but he just goes on a tangent. He goes on a tangent a lot, and this just doesn't. And I gotta applaud Doug at this point. He doesn't try and stop him. He doesn't even try to say, stick to my question, or try and stop him or do anything. Just let him go on and sticks to the questions he has to ask. But there was testimony in regards to the Airbnb that they have moved into, and I thought it was quite interesting, the testimony that he gave describing the property.
I thought you told law enforcement that Jim McIntyre facilitated giving you that money.
He facilitated in that, he made sure that I could get it safely. He also said that he was involved. The original story got picked up by Sony because it went kind of viral. It was featured on a TikTok channel. I don't use TikTok, but it got attention there, and then from there it spread to Twitter. He said that he was working with some I don't know what you would call it, web-based companies that are designed to get attention on certain things.
Now, you said
Jim McIntyre. So let's hear what he says about Jim McIntyre.
Said, Nick, I'm not an FBI agent. Why would you think that?
that you had learned prior to this that actually Cameron's credit card had been used to pay for a lot of your rentals and expenses, correct?
Yes, that's true.
So when you received that $300,000, how much of that did you give to Cameron?
I did not give any of that to Cameron.
And why not?
Because I believed that there was more money coming shortly thereafter, and that this was the money that we were going to both get ourselves settled with and get Mindy's parents settled with.
When did you move in, approximately, when did you move into the Airbnb on East 65th Street?
Late June of 2022. I believe it was the 26th or 27th.
Can you describe that Airbnb?
Yeah, it's a small house, one level. You walk up 2 or 3 steps to get in, and then it enters into a small living space. There's a sofa along that front wall. Sorry, I'll stop gesturing. I know that the record can't pick it up. Directly across from there is a small hallway. In the center of the hallway, there's a bathroom with a shower, and on either ends of that hallway, there are the 2 bedrooms of the house. To your right, there's what appears to be a small extension with another bathroom that contains a bathtub and the washer and dryer. If you continue to your left, it kind of makes an L shape, though if you look at the house from above, it is a rectangle because of those bedrooms. You have your kitchen, a small eating area, and then around that corner, you have another living area with a TV and access to the backyard.
Can you describe the backyard?
Backyard, it was nice. It was fairly large. It had a chain link fence all the way around. There was a large tree. There were neighbors fairly close on either side that we could see, but it was a family on one side and a kind of a construction area on the other side, and then it backed to a lane where they would collect the trash from, and people would sometimes drive down it.
We've seen a lot about a Ford Explorer. When did you purchase that Ford Explorer?
I purchased that Ford Explorer in late July of 2022.
And where did the funds come from to purchase that Ford Explorer?
From Sony, from that picture contract.
So we know that Jim had helped procure the Sony deal, but the most important part of that testimony is that there is no mention of the cameras that was supposed to be at the Airbnb that he told to law enforcement. So he gave a very, maybe it's just me picking up on all of this stuff, but he gave a very detailed overview of the house and just doesn't mention the cameras. Could work for him in a way that, he just as any human being would miss out some details. I don't know. Anyway, let's continue. He says that that Betsy and her husband had been kicked out of Frank's the fourth's house and had moved into the Airbnb with them. He also says that Mindi was terrified to leave the house because Jim had told her that his father was seeing her as an impediment. Let's just watch the testimony.
So Frank would bring her to work and then come home so he would have a car during the day. So I think I would normally hear them leaving and get up. I would bring Rusty outside to the bathroom. I would make coffee and I would start working. I would take a break to take a shower midday, have a bite to eat, and I would continue working until generally 1 or 2 in the morning.
And did you leave the house during that time?
Not
on an average day, would you?
On an average day, I would say no, but as time went on, I did leave the house more. But sometimes I would go out to pick up something that we needed for the house or pick up food. But on an average day, especially when we first got there, we had everything delivered, and I would go out very little.
And what about Mindi? What did you observe about her average day?
On her average day, she would not leave the house at all.
Why not?
She was terrified that she would be killed if she did.
Why was she terrified she would be killed? Do you know why she was terrified she would be killed?
Jim told her that while he felt that at this point my family was going to wanted to get me back in the fold, so to speak. He said that's why I hadn't been killed in Charlottesville when I was assaulted. But he said that they viewed Mindi as an impediment and that they would have killed her had they had the chance.
But you left the house.
I left the house.
Weren't you terrified to leave the house?
I was always terrified to leave the house. But I believed Mindi to be pregnant throughout this, and I don't know. It was my job.
Well, let's talk about that. Why did you believe Mindi to be pregnant?
Mindi told me that she was pregnant.
When did she tell you she was pregnant?
We were still at Frank and Megan's when she said she had taken a pregnancy test and that it was positive.
Did you see the test?
I don't know if I saw that test. I'd seen a test before, but I may have, I may not have. I just don't remember.
Had she ever previously been pregnant?
She had, roughly a year before, July of 2021. We had lost a baby.
Oh, the dad, man. My heart breaks because he's just like, what? Oh. But I'll be honest, that's what kind of, I don't know who would go to this extent without motive, just to kill his second wife after leaving his first. He didn't kill his first, by the way. He left his first. He knows how to leave. But forget that. Just forget that. Why would he distance himself from his parents? Like, how do you hatch a plan like that? And go ahead and distance yourself from the parents, say that you guys are adopted, all those things. Did he just have a random psychosis one day or something like that? I have no idea.
Did the two of you, well, let's start with you. What people outside this immediate family unit of 4 folks were you in communication with?
At this point, Cameron Nelson, Angela Wynn. Sometimes we would talk to. We had some other friends that we didn't talk to as much. A couple of friends of mine from law school I would contact once in a while. Mindi's friends Angela and DJ, her friend Elizabeth. But I would say, most of our real communications, I'll say, talking to people were with those people.
I thought that good question, because end of the day, it kind of holds on or brings the theory to life in regards to, everyone knowing about them moving around and apparently living in fear, and they will communicate through signal with these people. But normal messages with some people that he wasn't close with. Damn. He also says that Jim has sorted out, you know what, this was the time that Mindi fell sick again. And let's just go listen to the testimony in regards to what he did at that point.
Watch TV. I worked in the other living room that didn't have a TV. It had the couch. So, but if they weren't home, then we would sometimes sit in there and watch something if she was feeling up to it.
And during that Thanksgiving weekend, were you ever away from your home?
I was.
Where did you go?
I went to look at some apartments. We were trying to leave the area, and we were trying to find a place for Frank and Betsy to live when we left the area, because we wanted to make sure that they were taken care of. We didn't want to leave them in the lurch as we thought that they had been left in the lurch before.
This aligns with Frank's testimony about them looking for a house to stay. If you remember his testimony, he had a hip replacement surgery, and yeah, so yeah.
You go to look for homes.
I believe I looked at a home in Savannah, and I believe I looked at a home in Hilton Head. But I during this time frame, I looked at multiple homes for them, both online and in person. So I'm not exactly sure if that's where I went.
Okay. Did you ever hear from Mindi while you were away from home Thanksgiving weekend?
Yes, I did.
What did you hear?
I got a message from her that she was leaving the home, that she was concerned, and she was going to get medical attention.
Did you rush home to assist her in getting medical attention?
I did not. I asked her if she thought I should come back, and she said that she didn't need, that she was going to be picked up and that she was all right.
Did she tell you where she was going to get medical attention?
We had discussed it in prior days, that she was going to be taken to a birthing center, that a doctor that, or the man I believe to be a doctor who had been seeing her in the home, worked at or was affiliated with in some way. Mr. McIntyre was comfortable with that, because we were very scared again about the medical issues, with insurance, with payments, with our location being found.
So you're
happening. And I made some reference to wanting to speak to his superior, and he said, Nick, I'm not an FBI agent. Why would you think that?
Still in communication with the person you call Jim McIntyre?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and not just about this. I mean, other than Mindi, he was the person I spoke to more than anyone else for years. He knew, personal things about me, stresses, issues with Mindi's family when there were the arguments there. I mean, we didn't just talk like, oh, people are trying to kill you, how do you feel about that? It was the kind of conversations you would have with a close friend.
Who found Mindi's doctors?
Mindi did, I believe.
Do you know the names of her doctors?
I do not.
Who found the birthing center?
I believe that came from Mindi's doctor.
Wow.
Okay. What did you find when you returned home during Thanksgiving weekend?
Mindi was gone.
When was the next time you heard from Mindi?
I continued to receive signal messages from Mindi over the next several days.
What were the contents? What was the contents of those messages?
I was told on I believe Sunday that I should be preparing to leave again. This was something that had come up multiple times where we were told to pack, and then a few days later we would unpack. It was a constant hassle and stress. But I was told to pack just the things that we would need just for a couple of days, and that we might be leaving very, very quickly in the future.
And who had told you to prepare to leave?
I believe that came from Mindi, or I believed at the time that came from Mindi.
Why would Mindi direct you to leave the home, if you know?
Because I thought we were leaving the home. Our plan had never been to stay in Savannah. That was a temporary spot, and I believed that we were going to be leaving in the near future, and I believed that, based on what she was being told, that was happening.
Okay, so they did the prosecution made sure that there was no suggestion about insanity or anything like that. That they were not gonna ask questions about his mental state or anything like that. So he can't make the plea. But I just with what's coming out, I mean, the jury are not immune. They're human. They might actually just think that this guy is just not well, and they can't. I don't know, but it's maddening. It's maddening. I kind of feel bad for the guy listening to this testimony. But anyway, let's continue on, because there was something that he said that, just that just blew my mind here.
I believed that I would get a chance to see her.
What did you do next?
He had me sign some forms that I believed were for the autopsy, some sort of a release, and then I drove home.
How were you told she died?
At that time, I was not. He said that she had died very suddenly, that she had been brought back from some testing and had gone to the bathroom, and that the nurse was called away before she was done in the bathroom, and that by the time they came back to rehook her up to her machines, she had passed away, and that was why no alarms had been risen at the time, raised, I guess.
Okay, so you said you drove home from there.
Yes.
What happened when you got home?
I spoke to Frank and Betsy immediately. I mean, Betsy, I walked in and Betsy said, "Oh my God, is it the baby?" Like she could just see from my face that something was horribly wrong, and I started sobbing.
And you eventually told them?
Yes, I did.
What happened after that conversation? What did you do?
I contacted Jim, I believe, shortly thereafter, and told him what had happened, and he said that he would find out what happened. He said he was so sorry for me, and then I think I got drunk.
What did you do next?
Sometime either the following day or the day after, we had started to reach out to friends. I believe I reached out to Cameron and to Angela first. I met with Jim. He said he wanted to give me the results right away. Could I meet him somewhere outside Savannah? And I assumed it was the closest point, and that I would get the news quicker on what had happened. I remember talking to Betsy on my way out because she said, do you think we should be? She worked at Hunter McLean at this time in downtown Savannah. She said, "Do you think we should be looking for a lawyer?" And I said, "Absolutely. Like, I am very unhappy with the care. Like, how do you leave a woman who had all these health issues, alone for any length of time where she's not being monitored? Like, I absolutely at that point, wanted her to start that process."
Did you find a lawyer?
No, we did not, because of my conversation with Mr. McIntyre that day or the next day. It was Friday or Saturday.
He found out on Sunday, by the way, but continuing on.
At some point,
Mr. McIntyre was the one that dissuaded. Mr. McIntyre was the one that essentially dissuaded him from pursuing legal action that he wanted to pursue. So the defense that Doug gave that this guy was not litigious, down the drain. He wanted to pursue, but Jim was like, "No, calm down, don't do it." Okay. All right. He gave testimony in regards to acquiring a shovel to that the shovel he had bought was left at the Airbnb. And I thought this was really interesting because they didn't find the shovel at the, from what I understand, if they were looking for a shovel, they would have found it. But apparently they didn't find it at the Airbnb, that they just shown the states, they being the states, just essentially shown that he had made purchases of a shovel. That was it. But he says he left it behind at the Airbnb when he left. He also says that the vehicle had a Garmin sat nav on it, and it had blew up in the vehicle. In regards it had essentially blew up in the vehicle, and it had all his travels on it. Basically died in the car, along with the money, along with the knife that was supposedly in the car. He also says that the gift, he says that the knife set that he bought at Brad Pro's was because Mindi had told him that to get it for Matthew. So this was, I believe this was bought on the 28th of November. So at this point, Mindi was supposed to be sick around 28th or 29th, according to the evidence, I believe it was. Mindi was supposed to be sick at this point as well, So he had essentially got this knife set supposedly for Mindi's brother. Very, very interesting. Okay. He also says that he was told by Jim McIntyre that he was no longer, you know what? Let's just listen to the horse's mouth. Let's just get the facts from the horse's mouth. I think that you need to hear this.
For some time, but I left, I believe, the following Tuesday.
What happened to Betsy and Frank III? They were living with you. Where were they supposed to live?
I continued to work on finding them a place to live, and that following Tuesday, I moved them into a condo in Hilton Head, South Carolina.
How did you pay for that condo?
I paid for that condo with my debit card.
Weren't you afraid that would give away your location?
We had not had issues with the banking information. We believed that we had a leak of some sort with an online company that we were having something delivered to the house with, but Jim pointed out that we had no issues with the billing addresses of my banking information, which was either in Atlanta or Florida with that mail service that we were using again. So he said since neither of those had been touched, he thought that was good news that there would not be any danger to them.
Jim is not an FBI agent. Jim is not an FBI agent. Okay, so he gave testimony in regards to moving to St. Louis, that the place that he had planned to go, that he was going to move there with his new wife, and and they had already changed the name, all of that, based on Jim McIntyre's advice to change the name, and they were safe at this point. Changed all the names, changed all those things. He got Mindi's ashes. This, in my opinion, was probably one, if we don't have incremental damaging testimony built out at this point, I think that this basically sealed the deal, in my opinion. Let's just go ahead. Wait, where was it? Hold on. Okay, let's just go ahead and listen to the testimony here.
Ernest in either September or October of 2022.
Can you please tell the court her name?
Samantha Kolyesnik. Trying to pronounce that correctly.
And we saw text messages between you and Samantha, direct messages in Twitter.
Yes.
Between you and Samantha Kolyesnik, correct?
Absolutely.
Do you recall telling Samantha Kolyesnik that your wife had died some years prior to her actual death?
I did.
Why did you tell her that?
This goes back to the fall of 2020. We were in Beaufort and Mindi got sick. And within a day or two, took a COVID test and it was positive. This was pre-vaccine, and we called Mr. McIntyre. He had somebody come and pick her up and take her to the hospital, and I was told within a matter of days that she was not expected to live.
This was the same time.
It was Rusty and I in Beaufort. And I was told that I was not allowed to talk to any of our close friends or our family about what was going on, because nobody was allowed to see her. She was in a COVID ward. At that point, since none of us had vaccines, nobody was going to be allowed in, and that there, the chances of where I was being identified were extremely high. And I was, using social media to talk to people. I was a wreck. I was not doing well. And I started communicating with an old friend of Mindy's, or maybe an old acquaintance would be the better term, by the name of Joy, and it came to it became much more romantic in nature, to the extent that she came and visited me twice in Beaufort, and that we had talked that after Mindi passed away, we were going to move to be near her family in Minnesota.
But when you told Samantha Kolyesnik that Mindi had died, that was in October of 22, I believe?
Yes, following this, Mindi...
So, YB, welcome to the chat, young black economist. She's yeah, it was a disaster of a testimony, but I just want to listen to this was April 2020. Remember, Jim is not an FBI agent. He told him that, but at the same time, she had persuaded him to keep Jim rather than try and get rid. And at the same time, they were still living in fear. And he was seeing another woman at this point. He is testifying. And Doug does what he done best to bring it back to 2022, because you would think that he is just, you would think, and this is brilliant lawyering. This is brilliant, because you would actually think that he has essentially jumped 2 years to justify this particular death, but he made it clear that it was actually 2 different incidents. I thought it was brilliant to bring it right back to the 2022 time frame. He just made it look natural.
Mindi recovered in late December 2020. It was very, very unexpected, and Jim was, frankly, he said he had not been reviewing my social media as closely as he had at the beginning, and was frankly extremely livid with me that I had been talking to people that I didn't know well, that I had been saying outside of Signal, I had been saying where I was, what was going on with Mindi. I was frankly trying to survive. So we had almost no social media access for a period of months. He said that we had both in the past said things to people on social media that we didn't know well, that we shouldn't have. And then following that, he said he had some new rules for us that we, he said that since I had told so many people that I was married, that I had to start saying that Mindi had passed away, that she had died of COVID. I told but that was what I told all of my kind of online writing friends in the writing community. And he said that was to keep her safe. I don't recall what exactly she was supposed to say, if she was just supposed to say that she was unmarried or divorced, or if something had happened to me. We didn't talk a lot about our kind of individual chats with other people. Mindi and I did not talk about that with ourselves.
So, and this was the forget the FBI part. The one thing that I want to highlight from this is that he just gave testimony right here, right now, that he was to tell that Mindi has died. And he was to continue telling that lie to keep them safe. But at the same time, he said she died of heart problems to Nicholas. Sorry, not Nicholas. To Samantha Kolesnik, that she had heart problems because of her pregnancy. In all fairness, and now again, benefit of the doubt, this just line up, because she was pregnant according to what he said until 2021 when she had a miscarriage. So if we are to go by the lie, the fact that he was to lie to all these other people outside the family, he was to lie to all these other people, it would make sense that he would lie that Mindi, and he would throw in there the pregnancy thing as well. It would make sense, but at the same time, I don't know. Again, I'm trying. Continuing on. Let's go on to the testimony in regard to the ashes of Mindi.
Police officer's car to say, I need a new cashier's check. And he said, I think that might take a while. I think that's a problem. So while he was calling about the actual account, I was calling the general Citizens Bank customer service, and they confirmed to me that it was a long process to get a cashier's check reissued, because their concern is they have to honor a cashier's check, so they have to wait a certain amount of time after they have issued the kind of stop payment on it to make sure it has not been presented at some other bank.
Actually, I think I went.
The cashier's check?
I think I went too far ahead. Yeah, I think it's here.
You know, it hasn't updated in the system yet, so I can't issue you one under your new name. You're gonna have to come back next week. But here's your Delaware driver's license, and I was a little unhappy I had paid for it, frankly.
Tell us about your time in Lancaster County.
I started going to Lancaster County, fairly regularly on weekends to see Samantha.
And did that relationship continue to grow?
It did, yes. It was romantic. It very quickly grew serious.
Yeah, I went too far ahead. My bad. This is the part that I wanted.
Where did you go after Jacksonville, Green Cove Springs, Orange Park?
I started heading towards St. Louis, Missouri, where we had planned to go at that point. And I spent a night in Alabama. That kind of seemed like a halfway point. And I had a appointment there the following morning. So.
What was your appointment in Alabama?
To get Mindi's ashes.
Do you need any water? Are you okay? Do you need any water? Okay.
I died at this point frustrated me hella so much because he didn't have to. Let me you to be the parent at this point,
if you know,
and still turn up to court, to be the parent and still turn up to court, all of this, to hear all of this is, I'll give it to them. I
Mindi's ashes in Alabama.
I had no idea where Mindi had been cremated. This was information I had gotten third hand from Mr. McIntyre. Then I received a phone call from a gentleman who said that I had to arrange to pick them up, and we were discussing where we would both be, and he said that he could meet me in Montgomery, Alabama.
And what did he give you there?
He gave me a bag that he said contained Mindi's ashes. It also contained her engagement ring and her wedding ring.
What, if anything, did you give him?
I gave him $5,000 in cash that I withdrew that morning from the Renaissance Bank in Montgomery, Alabama.
Did he give you any additional paperwork?
He did not.
Did he give you a death certificate?
He did not.
Did you ask for a death certificate?
I asked, at one point, I asked Mr. McIntyre if I could get one, but given that we had no life insurance, it wasn't something that I needed for anything. It was just something that I wanted to have, and I failed to follow up on it.
You say you had no life insurance. You both had no life insurance?
We both had no life insurance, yes.
Good and bad testimony, but it's definitely an inconsistent statement. Definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, because he told the investigators on the first interview that he'd done that he had regretted not even asking. He had regretted not even asking for the death certificate. But now he actually did ask, but at the same time he didn't get it because they didn't have life insurance. So he was probably told, you don't have any life insurance, so don't worry about it. And he just said, okay, fine. Bizarre. But let's just continue. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I do think that the testimony in regards to life insurance does really help him, because there is, there is nothing here that to basically suggest that he will kill Mindi for a life insurance. There's no evidence that there was even a payout. There's no evidence that he even came to money in regards to Mindi's death. It's just the Sony payment that he has and the stock options we had testimony of in regards to the offshore accounts and all not offshore accounts, sorry, the trust that he was getting from APIS, that money was going in there. That's all we have. So there is no testimony in regards to life insurance. So this was, in my opinion, beneficial for the defense. If you want to disregard all the story, it did linger in my mind. Okay, there was no life insurance. The prosecution has not even presented any evidence of a life insurance for Mindi. So why would he do this? That would linger. It lingered in my mind anyway. But he said this next part of the testimony was really bizarre to me as well, regarding his parents.
Of Wayne, my dad.
You mentioned an incident in Charlottesville that you believed was Wayne attacking you, correct?
Yes.
Were there any other encounters between you and Wayne prior to you filling out that form?
Absolutely. He came to Savannah. He found us in Savannah when we were living on East 65th Street, and came one morning and knocked on the door.
He knocked on the door of your home.
Yes.
Was anyone with him?
Yes. Yeah. His brother Chet was with him.
Do you see them in the courtroom now?
Yeah. My dad is right there in the blue polo, and my Uncle Chet is 3 people down from him.
What did you do when you saw them at your doorway?
I was terrified. We had a near miss from a hurricane the night before, so a lot of people, Betsy and Frank included, had left Savannah, but it ended up coming ashore north of Charleston. But I assumed it was the homeowners, the gentleman Matt and his wife who testified, that were coming to check on the house, just make sure there was no damage. So I opened the door. I hadn't had any coffee yet. I assumed that it was them, and I was very shocked when I opened the door.
What did you do when you saw them?
I think I said, why are you here? How did you find me? Or something like that. They said, that they had hired somebody to track me down. They asked if I would come somewhere with them private to talk. I said, absolutely not. And then I shortly thereafter, I slammed the door and locked it.
Was Mindi there when this happened?
Mindi was in the bedroom with the door closed at this time. Her sleep schedule was kind of a mess at this point. She would, sometimes be awake all night because she couldn't sleep. Then she would be asleep all day. But at this point, it was probably 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm not kind of guessing, but she was in the bedroom.
As fantastical as this testimony sound, I think it's beneficial for the defense for really one key reason. He alleged that he was attacked by his parents. He alleged that his parents had adopted him. He alleged that they had to move because his parents were basically sending him threats and all of those things, trying to get, I don't know, for whatever reason. But yet, we don't hear testimony from the parents to basically dispel this whole theory and have them on record saying, no, we never even turned up to his house. We never did this. We never did that. That never happened. We were just worried that, he was moving around. We don't hear that. Why? This is, you got to bear in mind, the prosecution is trying to present a theory that there is no Jim McIntyre whatsoever. Now, we're hearing a theory of the parents actually causing him harm. And they haven't heard from the parents that this never happened. Why would the prosecutor not look at the parents, or at least try and find that information from the parents, if any of what he's saying is actually true and verifiable? I thought that was, again, one of the things that was lingering in my mind. It was lingering in my mind for a while, and we are going to get to why when I give my final thoughts. But anyway, moving on. Of course, he goes on to give to detail. We already went through where he detailed why he told Samantha that Mindi had died. We already went through that. He says that he had made a mistake when he was changing his name in Delaware. That he was supposed to be called Stark, but apparently they only still gave him Kissotis, so they couldn't change it, and they had to wait a couple of days or something like that to get the change done. So that was what the whole Delaware was about. Okay, so he testified that he got married to Samantha on the 21st of April, but this part of the testimony lingers in my mind because for so many reasons. But this was when apparently he was arrested in March, but I believe he's probably referencing May 2023. I believe he's referencing May 2023, but he says he was arrested. Anyway,
before the judge, I explained my situation, and she granted the name change. I had started the process of changing other things. I went to the Social Security office when I was told to in Delaware, and I changed my.
Oh, the police interview before we continue. The police interview is there. He actually definitely said my dad Wayne was actually after him. That's what Jim told him. He actually said that. So that's what's lingering on my mind. So him bringing these facts in, I think is, I mean, like we are gonna go to the closing arguments as well. Again, like I said, this is gonna be quite an extended stream. I'll do my best to try and streamline it as possible, but I really want to hit so many points today and go through what I really believe the jury might come back with in the end.
Social Security number to reflect my new name. I changed my name to reflect my. No, I think I said it right the first time. I'm sorry. So I had to update it, just like women have to if they change their name after marriage or something like that. You go to Social Security. That's your first stop, and you say, "This is why my name changed, either the marriage certificate or the name change order." And so what was once Nicholas James Kassotis on the Social Security number is now Nicholas Killian James Stark.
And how long did it take Social Security to update that information?
It takes them apparently about 24 hours. So I didn't realize this at the time. I left the Social Security office and went to the DMV in Delaware. And when I got there that morning, I was told, no, this will take, it might be done today, but more likely it will be sometime. And this was on a Friday, I believe, so it'll be sometime after the weekend.
What name is on your Delaware driver's license?
Nicholas James Kassotis. I went back that afternoon to a different DMV and filled out. I had my name change order. I had a printout from Social Security. I had some documents that Mr. McIntyre had provided, and then I explained the situation, and the woman said, "Oh yeah, I think this will be fine." At this point, we went through the entire process. She had me pay. She gave me the card. It came off the printer, and I said, "This is the wrong name." And she said, "Oh yeah, this is, it hasn't updated in the system yet, so I can't issue you one under your new name. You're gonna have to come back next week. But here's your Delaware driver's license." And I was a little unhappy I had paid for it, frankly.
Tell us about your time in Lancaster County.
So before we go on to that testimony, so the prosecutors did call a dad. That was Frank. So they did call him to testify. That was Mindi's dad, but they never called Nicholas's dad to come and testify. That never happened.
I started going to Lancaster County, fairly regularly on weekends to see Samantha.
And did that relationship continue to grow?
It did, yes. It was romantic. It very quickly grew serious. Probably unhealthily fast. In both our situations, but yes.
And you eventually got married, correct?
Yes, we did.
When did you get married to Samantha?
April 21st of 2023.
We've seen pictures of your burned up Ford Explorer. What happened?
Sir. On March, believe it was March 20th of 2023, I was driving the Ford Explorer. I had left the rental we were staying at, driven north to run some errands, and also to, I believe, picked up a cashier's check for the purchase of a home. And shortly thereafter, I was making a turn onto another road, and the car was kind of fighting me a little. Like it was taking more force to turn than I thought it would. I continued down the road and was smelling something odd, which in Lancaster County is not necessarily indicative of anything but that you're driving by a farm. And I stopped. At that point, I realized that there was smoke in the interior of the car. I got out, and crossed around to the passenger side to get my phone out, but opened the door, and the fire kind of just came right up at me. It was the car went up extremely fast.
What injuries, if any, did you suffer?
I suffered some burns to my face. I lost a lot of hair, like an eyebrow, and a lot of hair off the side of my head. I also had a burn to my right eye. It didn't occur to me before this that your eyes could actually get burned, but they can.
What happened to the goods that were in your vehicle?
Everything was destroyed.
You mentioned picking up a cashier's check to purchase a home.
Yes.
Tell me about your home purchase.
Sam and I had been looking for places to live, and we had settled on a house in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
When was the closing date?
Closing date was March 20th.
Did you put any deposit on the house?
I put a $50,000 EMD on the house.
Did you ever, where was the cashier's check from?
I believe it was from Citizens Bank, but I did not physically draw the cashier's check. I looked at it to verify that the name of the closing company was right, that the amount was right, and I believe it was a Citizens Bank cashier's check. Actually, I know it was a Citizens Bank because I called Citizens Bank thereafter to discuss with them.
You say you didn't draw the cashier's check. Who drew the cashier's check?
Somebody that Jim McIntyre worked with, who he had me meet and pick up that morning.
And what happened to the check?
The check burned along with my car, bits of me, and everything I had in the car at the time.
What did you do about the destroyed check?
I talked to Mr. McIntyre. Within, I don't know the exact time. It was pretty shocking. But I was driven back to the rental by a police officer, and I called him while I was still in the police officer's car to say, I need a new cashier's check, and he said, I think that might take a while. I think that's a problem. So while he was calling about the actual account, I was calling the general Citizens Bank customer service, and they confirmed to me that it was a long process to get a cashier's check reissued, because their concern is they have to honor a cashier's check. So they have to wait a certain amount of time after they have issued the kind of stop payment on it to make sure it has not been presented at some other bank.
So I was always thinking where the down payment question, the only question that Doug had asked Samantha was whether a down payment was made, and Samantha said, yeah, a down payment was made. So, and he's now testifying that a down payment came from the cashier's check that was given to him by Nick McIntyre. Sorry, not Nick McIntyre. By Jim McIntyre. So the cashier's check was given to him by Jim McIntyre, but it blew up. It burnt up in the car. So how did he get the down payment down? He says he paid for it. Okay.
Was the cashier's check the only way to make the final payment on that home?
Later on, we learned that it was not, that we could wire, and I received wire instructions later.
So you eventually wired and closed on the home?
No, we did not. By that point, we had gone back and forth with the owners of the house via our realtors. We had, it had been a very stressful couple of weeks. I mean, we had utilities on in the home. We had furniture being delivered that was sitting in the driveway that I was having to pick up and move into storage. It was a very stressful time, and I was dealing with physical injuries and didn't have a car at this point. So it was an absolute nightmare. And Samantha said to me that she felt like the entire process had been so poisoned that she no longer wanted to go through with the purchase of that home. So we informed the buyers that we were not going to close. I forfeited that $50,000 EMD, and we started our home search anew.
Okay. Yeah, so Nick's dad is actually in court. And he was the older guy, gentleman looking on. I will show him if the camera does pan, but he was actually in court. They even made reference to him in the closing arguments, and I'm gonna spoil a little bit the closing arguments, but I really wish that Doug, again, I give all props to Doug for the closing argument, I really do, but I wish that he would have brought up, well, why didn't we hear testimony from the dad? Why didn't the prosecution investigate it, like, I'd gone further to ask questions about it. I thought that would have been a slam dunk. I really thought that would have at least shown that they didn't do enough due diligence to at least eliminate Jim McIntyre entirely. That's the dad.
Did you ever eventually buy a home with Samantha?
We did not. We were looking. We were actually going. We had four home showings scheduled on the day of March 12th.
What happened on March the 12th?
I was arrested shortly after leaving our residence, or our rental.
That was supposed to be May. I'm guessing that's supposed to be May, but yeah.
Did you kill your wife, Mindi Kassotis?
I absolutely did not. I've never put my hands on a woman. I've never hurt a woman. I would never have hurt Mindi.
Did you strike her on the head up to 9 times?
Never. Never, not once.
Did you dispose of her body?
No, never.
Did you dismember her body?
No, absolutely not. Frankly, I'm not great with blood. So as anyone who's ever given me a doctor's exam can tell you, that is not something that is even remotely possible for me.
My last question is just, is there anything else that you would like to say that I haven't asked you about?
Objection, Your Honor. That calls for a narrative.
So this was sustained.
It does. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please step.
So that was sustained. They went into cross-examination. I'm not gonna go through in the entire cross, but the state was highlighting a lot of bad facts. The fact that he went into the hunting club, the fact that the fact that he was messaging Samantha when Mindi had died, the fact that the facts that they were. In my opinion, I thought that this cross-examination was showing a real, maybe like a real shift from in the state's trial testimony, because in the opening statements, they were saying that he was running, that he was doing all of this because he was after the judgment, he was after this. I don't think they anticipated this testimony, and they just literally had to shuffle and think on their feet when they heard this testimony, and their strategy changed completely from moving to a new wife and killing the wife. From moving on from the second wife, Mindi, to killing this wife because he wanted to start a new relationship. The deaths, they didn't even highlight the death certificate. Not the death certificate, the death email that Betsy had received that he was going to start. They just completely abandoned that theory of the case and just went with the fact that and just theorized or closed with Nick did it because he didn't get his wish that of having a child with Mindi. That's why he had stabbed her, and then said that he had stabbed her in her belly. I mean, okay, I can't. If my memory serves, I could not remember the medical examiner saying that. But at the same time, I'll put my hands up and say that the 9 blows to the head, I did recall the medical examiner saying trauma, but I did not recall him saying blows to the head. So perhaps I missed that testimony in regards to Mindi hitting the getting stabbed in the belly. But anyway, moving on. So I thought that I'm just gonna play a few clips from the cross-examination that I thought was really interesting and had him squirming a little bit. And it was at this point in regards to his experience. I thought that Baio did well. It was easy for her to basically pull this off.
I have a document because there were no documents.
You worked for Apis Security, correct?
I believe so, ma'am.
No W-2, right?
At some point I saw a W-2, but
But you didn't bring one.
no, ma'am. I believe there was one in Discovery, but I don't recall.
You do. You believe there was one in Discovery?
I believe so, ma'am.
Can you tell us what document that was?
I can't recall. I believe it was a tax document.
Was there a W-4?
I don't recall. I'm not sure what a W-4 is, ma'am.
An I-9?
No, ma'am.
No tax documents?
No. I-9s are for immigrations, proving that you're a citizen, so.
What about tax records? You got paid, right?
It was paid into a trust, ma'am.
So you have 0 records reflecting being paid by Apis Security, correct?
Well, I have the records that you provided to me during Discovery, but
1.84. You provided Samantha with an employment verification, correct?
yes, ma'am.
You indicated you worked for them February 12th, 2018 to present. That was January 12th of 2023, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You never got a single paycheck?
Not paid to me, no.
So for 5 years, you worked for a company and got 0 money handed to you.
Handed to me, yes, ma'am.
I mean, he held his own. I'll give him that. There was also another testimony that I thought that needs highlighting. This part across, I thought that this was really, really great point that I don't think he could argue out of.
Ever had an Uber app on your phone in 2022?
In 2022, I did. I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about Miss Nelson's credit card. Are
I
you
asked-
talking about my bank records or Miss Nelson's? I'm just not clear.
I'm talking about your bank records.
Oh, okay, yes. My bank records, yes. There were times I took an Uber.
But you told this jury you were afraid to leave the house, right?
Yes, ma'am. Every time I went out, it was scary.
But you fought through the fear and jumped in an Uber?
If I had things that needed to be done, then yes. I thought it was my job to take care of those things.
You didn't call Jim and say, hey, Jim, I need a ride. Get me to this location. You're my security detail?
No, ma'am. Sometimes he would drive me places, but for regular errands, no. That was something that I dealt with. Either I had Mr. Frank Mebane drive me, or I would call an Uber.
Right, because on November 29th, you clearly went to Home Depot by yourself, right?
Yes, ma'am. At that point, I had a car, so I was not taking Ubers anywhere.
I gotta give it. I mean, he walked right into it. Because it was just disseminate. So they moved into Airbnb on June 2022. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe before they purchased the car, he had to take the Ubers somewhere. But at the same time, that was just the cornering that you can't get out of. You can't. Why wouldn't you contact? Why wouldn't you get Jim to drive you anywhere? Why even buy a car? Why actually buy a car when you can get Jim to just drive you everywhere? I mean, that's just what I got from it. I thought that cross-examination was that part was probably what kills it. Should I mean the fact that he said that Jim was not working for the FBI agent and still continue to be talking about security, I thought that should completely shred his credibility. But if that didn't do it, this did. So the state was also highlighting that there was no birth centers around the military base, and he also let's go to this part of testimony in regards to the fire that he had in the house, that he had to the car, and how some info were destroyed in that fire.
You didn't care about a check for $860,000?
I absolutely cared about a check for $860,000. At that moment, I was trying to call for help. I did not realize that my car was about to burst into flames.
Detective Frost had to tell you about the check, didn't he?
No, ma'am. I remembered the check. I thought we were talking about something else.
I just want to make sure I confirm something. The police report against your father for the name change in Missouri,
Yes, ma'am.
that was September 30th of 2022, the incident, correct?
I believe so, ma'am. Yes.
When you are a victim of domestic violence, as alleged, that allows you to seal the name change, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
If you had not had a police report reflecting the need to seal it being domestic violence, you couldn't have gotten it sealed, right?
Well, ma'am, I thought there were many other reports at this time, but yes, I did rely on that one when I got it sealed. Yes, ma'am.
It's just done it because you testified. That was it. That was essentially it. So all this time, why would you go to FBI in the first place if you have already gone to law enforcement here to get your name change regarding this domestic violence that you were supposedly suffering? You went to law enforcement to get your name change here, but you didn't go to law enforcement. You did it to get a police report, by the way, but you didn't go to law enforcement to at least get a police report to at least have it on record. You went straight to the FBI. That's at least the thought I was having in my head when I was when I was listening to that part of the testimony. So, gosh, but I gotta give it to Doug. They did the redirect exam was 100%. I mean, he has nothing. He has minimal to work with, and he still makes he made dog poo. He made dog poo out of he made chocolate out of dog poo, basically. And there was testimony that he gave that from what he understood when he was getting paid for all of this for his work, that he was getting paid and it was getting put into a trust. That has always been his testimony. He has never deviated from that idea. He also says that he didn't see his wife in hospital. He was talking to her on Signal. So the time that Mindi was supposed to be dead, which was the late around Thanksgiving, November, that time he was likely not. That's the idea he's trying to present. He was probably not speaking to Mindi at all. That at this point that Mindi was telling him that she was gonna come home, and then he found out from Jim or one of the doctors that she had died. He also testifies. I want to go to. He also testifies about the changes that they had to the house when the parents had visited. So he went through all the changes that they had done to the house in Charlottesville after the parents had basically broke into the house, and it was not broke into the house, but basically tracked them down. And I really wish that Doug highlighted in his cross-examination the fact that they didn't even ask Wayne questions, his parents. But I want to go to this part because I thought that this was an impeccable way to end all of what we just heard.
Yes, sir.
You make up stories?
When I write, yes, sir.
How do we know this story that you're telling today is not fiction? That you have not made this up?
Yes, sir. Absolutely everything we did for 5 years makes absolutely no sense absent somebody telling us to do it. From the very large settlement I was willing to voluntarily give Heather, which would make no sense if I didn't believe I had $32 million coming in, to staying in the house at a time where the state says that I knew that I was on the run. Like I had absolutely no idea. I lived in that house for another 9 months. I never saw any sign that, that there was any issue with Heather, to putting a $50,000 EMD on a house that I believed that there was money coming to buy. I mean, I don't know how many of you have ever been to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but you could probably rent a very nice house there for 2-3 years with $50,000.
As you sit here today, do you think that there was a person named Jim McIntyre?
I do not believe that was his name now.
How does that make you feel?
Angry, betrayed, frankly dumb.
Do you know who killed your wife, Mindi Kassotis?
I do not.
I have no further questions.
In all fairness, we heard the facts. We even saw parts of the facts because that's what the prosecution did. Just reintroduce the facts into the remind the jury of the facts, tying everything back into Nick. But for you not to have any facts on your side, you don't have any facts on your side. How do you salvage it? Well, you bring in facts that he had basically said to show that it couldn't have been fictional. You just bring it all back in the same way that the prosecution done. Bring it all back in to say, look, I wouldn't say on the oath that I have 35 million. I just wouldn't say that if I didn't believe that money was coming in. Before all of this, they are gone through how many times they have moved. He said it was 50 times. So the way that ended, in my opinion, I thought, okay, cool. I'll give it to you. That was some really good cross-examination.
Recross.
I just have one question. You indicated that at some point you put a camera in after the incident with your father, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
In Savannah, let me be clear.
Yes, ma'am.
And that camera was pointed towards the road, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that camera did not record?
I'm not sure, but I don't remember it recording.
Well, you told law enforcement in the interview it didn't record.
Yeah, that is my understanding. Or that was my understanding at the time. It's been several years since I saw that camera last, so.
But you saw the interview?
Yes, ma'am. Yep, I believe my memory was fresher then, and so.
Nothing else, Your Honor.
Okay, so let's go into the closing arguments, and we are just gonna let we're just gonna let it run because and I'll give my full thoughts after the closing arguments, but let's see how they reconcile with their theory of the case, because there was a lot. Yeah, anyway, let's just continue.
Was after him. He told people all kinds of lies he believes in family. As I appreciate that. I think all of us appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah,
Nicholas Kassotis.
Yeah, the guy did not even I've seen in the chats that Lexi the law nerd pointed out something here. He did a really good job of keeping cool and calm. I'll give him credit for that. I will 100%, because this guy did not go Amber Heard. Like, people compare him to Amber Heard, and I think there is a real strong case to be made here that this guy is actually worse than Amber Heard, in my opinion, in terms of lying, because I never saw it became that easily. But on cross-examination, he didn't lose it. He just reiterated, look, this is what happened. This is what happened. He didn't try to explain himself. Well, actually, he did. He explained his answers, but he didn't try to say, why would I do this? Why would I lie? What woman would lie about domestic violence. You know, like it wasn't like that. It was just answer the question, answer the question, answer the question. So yeah,
has lied to many, many people. He has left a wake of emotional distress amongst a number of his friends and family. His parents, Linda and Wayne, who you've seen throughout this trial behind him, were shut off by him. Shut off by him because he believes that, for some reason, his father Wayne was after him. He told people all kinds of lies about his parents, that they weren't his real parents, that he was abused growing up.
And this is a very, before I continue on, this is a very, very good point that young black economist has been making since yesterday. And it just goes back to the idea that he probably has secret accounts somewhere, because there is no way that, and he's not going to get onto the stand and say, yeah, we were actually committing fraud. We were actually committing a crime. We were trying to keep a low profile, all of those things. He just wouldn't do that in court. So how else would you do that? If Jim McIntyre isn't real, if he actually isn't real, you have to question, okay, why were you actually moving around so many times? It definitely couldn't have been running from the judgment, because he agreed to the judgment. He could have negotiated for a much lower judgment. We know that 90K was part of it, that he had to pay in interest, and 10 million. But why would he agree to 1.5 as a payout? He could have negotiated that he could have presented records, or say he could have presented records to show that she is not even entitled to this sum of money because I don't have it. Like we were only married for like 5 years, 4 or 5 years. There's no way someone is going to be accumulating that much money from a divorce from someone that doesn't. This is where, in my opinion, if people really think about it, he is not running from the judgment. He's actually trying to, hypothesizing here. It seems more likely that he's doing all of this for fraud, and the only way I could tie it back to Mindi, he probably told Mindi that that they do have a lot of money, and then Mindi found out it was actually fraudulent activity, therefore she had to go. That is the only ironclad motive to actually kill her, then send all these messages to say that he's dead as well. That is the only way I could actually, but I'm dealing with facts, not in evidence. I'm trying to entertain this theory. I'm trying to give it as much credence as possible. If he was doing fraud and Mindi had no idea about it, and Mindi was shown that they actually did have a lot of money, Mindi was shown the trust, Mindi was shown everything, and somehow Mindi stumbled upon one of his communications somewhere and saying, oh shoot, this guy is actually committing fraud, and she's now trying to leave. We don't have evidence of her trying to leave him though. So that's where the theory kind of falls apart. But if you need a motive to actually kill somebody, they have evidence of you doing something absolutely wrong. That's the only way I could actually. Otherwise, I can't see him killing. I just can't see it, because it's just not making sense why he would kill Mindi, especially pregnancy. That pulls you to the edge, and not seeing your ex-wife. You didn't assault your ex-wife. You didn't lose it with your ex-wife, but for some reason you lose it with Mindi, who wasn't able to give you a child. But you go with this woman that was somehow able to give you a child and you didn't. She wasn't pregnant. Okay, I mean that's what the state privileged to, but
His real parents were somewhere in England, that he was kidnapped, taken to the U.S., caused tremendous pain to them. He caused pain to all of the friends that he lied to for those years. And you heard from them. Cameron. On top of the pain for Cameron, he took $200,000 of her money. So you can find, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Nick Kassotis lied to people. That Nick Kassotis took advantage of people like Cameron. You see and you heard what Nick Kassotis did with Samantha Kolyesnik, his third wife. Told her lies, married her under false pretenses to such an extent that the state of Pennsylvania granted her, or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, granted her an annulment, which, as she told you, was very difficult to get. He treated her terribly. You can find beyond a reasonable doubt that he did that to Samantha. There's no doubt about it. You've heard a lot about Jim McIntyre. I'm sure the state will talk a lot about Jim McIntyre. But this trial is not about whether there is or is not a Jim McIntyre. This trial is not about whether you believe that there's a Jim McIntyre running around or you believe that Nicholas Kassotis committed these crimes beyond a reasonable doubt.
I just want to say, in regards to what you said here, I wouldn't be surprised if the Fed, if he does get a not guilty verdict. I don't see how, but let's just say that he does get a not guilty verdict. I see the Feds circling him regarding those trusts. I see it. I actually see it. They actually might, because no one moves around that much. So if this Jim McIntyre person is real, the Feds are circling. I mean, they have to, because he says that he's part of the FBI, but then says that he's not part of the FBI. Understand, but still continue to provide them security detail. It's not adding up. So they might actually want to look into that. Now that it's here, and a lot of people are talking about it, you might see Feds after him.
This isn't a trial about Jim McIntyre. This is a trial, unfortunately, about Mindi Kassotis and who killed Mindi Kassotis. So I'm going to ask you to look at those facts. Look at the facts that the state has presented and make your decision based on those facts. The GBI did an incredible job in investigating the death of Mindi Kassotis. Agent Sands is a fantastic agent. His partner, I'll call him the partner, did a fantastic job at the crime scene. But they very quickly zeroed in on Nicholas Kassotis. And as far as their investigation of Nicholas Kassotis, it really could not have been more thorough, could it? They pulled all of his bank information. They looked at credit cards, Airbnb documents, a host of exhibits that you will all have access to, showing all of his movements, his GPS movements of his vehicle, everything about Nicholas Kassotis. But what else did you hear? Nobody's perfect. And as great as Agent Sands and his team are, they didn't follow everything, right? Jim McIntyre. They had a number of leads on Jim McIntyre's all over the place. What is the Jim McIntyre lead they followed up on? The one that was convenient. the one that was over here in Savannah, near the law office where Miss Mebane worked. That's the one they followed up on. The crime scene. They picked up a cigarette box that was in the road, halfway between the location of Mindi Kassotis' torso and one of these totes over here. They picked that up. What did they do with it? As far as the evidence that's been admitted, nothing. No follow-up. Why no follow-up? Why no analysis? Why not look for DNA on the box? Maybe find leads? Because they had already decided. As soon as they saw video from that camera of the husband's car near the scene of the body, the investigation for suspects was effectively over. That was it. They had their guy. Nick Kassotis was their guy. They didn't need to follow up on that cigarette pack. How many other cars were captured on that motion camera at the pumping station that day, or over those 3 days that I asked about? Numerous cars. Were any of those cars followed up on? These are cars going by a scene where Mindi Kassotis' body is found. What investigation took place on all of those other people that went by where that body was? Nothing. Nothing. Why not? Because they had their man. He's sitting right over there. He's the guy that did it. We don't need to look into anyone else. All that we need to do is pour all of the resources of the GBI, FBI resources from Agent Bernie with his cast. Let's direct everything into Nick Kassotis, because we have our guy. He did it. When they arrest Nick Kassotis, what does he do? Does he take advantage of his constitutional rights? He's a lawyer.
I just want to pause there for a minute. He actually said that he did inquire. I think it was in cross-examination that he did actually inquire that they actually have it in discovery or something like that on cross-examination, that they actually have the records in discovery. I thought that was, I was like, what? If they have it, he's trying to basically get a Brady and say that they have this evidence, but they didn't present it or something. Well, I mean, it's a loose attempt at a Brady. But I remember when this was offered, or when this was asked to him in regards to like try to search further from the FBI about Jim, and he was basically said no, they have all the records about him, that he did present him with records or something like that, but they didn't feel the need to go further.
Any lawyer worth a damn is not going to talk to law enforcement if they are a suspect. Any lawyer worth a damn tells their clients, do not speak to law enforcement. You have a constitutional right. Let me tell you all the reasons it's a bad idea. He didn't just have a JD. As you heard the state point out, he's a former prosecutor. He's a former defense attorney. He's speaking to law enforcement. Why is he doing that? Because as totally insane as the Jim McIntyre story is, he has nothing to hide. He lived that Jim McIntyre story. He lived it. This isn't a fiction that the writer, Nick Kassotis, makes up upon arrest.
He's an actor too.
I mean, he's good.
He's a method actor as well.
He sold a story to Sony, but he's not that good. He's not that good that he could make up a story and then retroactively have lived it. He lived the Jim McIntyre story for years before the arrest, for years before Mindi Kassotis' murder. They actually lived like that. Mindi lived like that. Both Mindi and Nick told people the same story about security details. I don't know whether Mindi necessarily said Jim McIntyre, but they discussed it. They lived it. He didn't make it up later. So when he's arrested, and when Agent Sands and now Investigator Frost go up to Pennsylvania, go up to Lancaster County, and they want to speak to Nick Kassotis, he speaks to them. He doesn't have anything to hide. As a matter of fact, it seems to me he's trying to figure some things out. What's going on here? I thought my wife had died. I'm being arrested for her murder. This is nuts. This is this crazy Kafka-esque world that he is living in, where he is tormented, played with by someone calling themselves Jim McIntyre. Moving 50 plus times? Who voluntarily does that? Unless they believe there's a real threat on their lives. So he talks to them. He talks to them. Now the state's going to claim that he's inconsistent in what he says, in what Nick Kassotis says.
What I want to give him props. What a flip on the prosecutors. What a flip. Because he for his wife, like, he would actually definitely 100% as a lawyer would say, let me talk to a law enforcement first. But the fact that he flipped this on his head, he said no. He didn't even bother doing that because he's like, why do I need to bother? Like, she's already dead. They are coming to tell me something that I never, that I never had any hand in. She was already dead. I got the ashes. I scoured the ashes. I done all this. I did all that. I thought it was a brilliant flip.
Go in the back. I'm not concerned about any of this evidence. I want you to go back there and spend as much time as you need. Look at everything they have against Nick Kassotis. Look at it all. Study it in detail. Don't rush. Take your time. Take your time. Because his story, what he tells people, is pretty much the same. From the first interview in Pennsylvania to the second interview down here, where he's clearly exhausted from having flown down, tells pretty much the same story. He gets on the stand here. He tells pretty much the same story. Why? I believe it was Agent Sam.
That's true. Inconsistencies along the way, we have highlighted them. Him saying that Jim was no longer an FBI agent. Oh God. But it's true. In fact, his dates that he's even given for the miscarriage, all of those, the second pregnancy, all of those things, lines up date-wise. I mean, structure-wise, it does. It does line up structure. The minor details, sorry, not minor details, the contents may not be completely congruent, but you would think the structure will fall apart somewhere the way or the other if you're lying all this time. And I do think I will give the prosecution a lot of credit here, because on their cross-examination they made sure that they hammer home that he has had access to the police interview because of this case. He has had access to it, so he can watch it and study it and keep his story relatively clean. He's had access to that. But even with that said, on that police interview, he never actually and I think this might help the state a little bit, but I think it does help him. The defense, he has always said in that police interview that the problems started, or Jim McIntyre entered the fray around 2018, and he was the one overseeing the divorce. He has always said that. So now we're getting a full narrative. You in a way, you can't accuse him for, in my opinion, based on all of this, you can't accuse him of retroactively making the stories fit into the circumstances that happened pertaining to divorce, all those things. Because, and I remember even bringing it up as unbelievable. Like, wait, Jim McIntyre was involved in your divorce now? But he has said it. Like, he was the one that was advising him in the divorce to get with his ex-wife. The one thing he didn't mention in the first interview, I remember, was the 32 million. He never mentioned that. I believe he never mentioned that. But he did mention it in his second interview when the police brought it in. I didn't even believe the 32 million. I was like, the police are lying to him. And I was shocked to actually find out it was actually true that he did say that when Heather testified. I was actually shocked. But he, when they brought that up, he said, yeah, Jim McIntyre had told him that he had that money. That
or it could have been Investigator Frost that said, the story about Tom Sawyer, it's easier to keep the truth straight. Lies are hard to keep straight. That's true. That's true. And there's a few inconsistencies, but there's been a lot of time. But he tells the same story. He is open with them because he has nothing to hide. Because he did not kill his wife, Mindi Kassotis. So he talks to the investigators. Now, I used to be, for 25 years, purely a civil litigator. And if you are a civil lawyer, you're doing commercial disputes between parties, one of the things you love it when you get it, is to be able to depose the same person twice. A deposition is kind of like an interrogation like you saw. Hopefully y'all have been fortunate enough to never have been deposed. I pray that's the case. It's an unpleasant experience. But you know what you really want to do? You want to be able to depose someone twice. Why is that? Because you depose them the first time, you get all that information, you sit back, you think, well, what didn't I learn? What didn't I ask about? Maybe I can catch some things that are inconsistent. And if a judge gives you the chance to depose them a second time, you have lived a charmed life. That's a wonderful thing. Now, Nick Kassotis was not really a civil litigator. As you heard, he did criminal. But he sat down for a second interview. What a golden opportunity for law enforcement. They've been able to think about all the questions, all the other things that they may not have asked about. They've got more research now. It's been a while. It's been a week or so. They ask them again. They put huge pressure on Nick Kassotis during those interviews. You saw the second one. You heard the first one. I know it's harder to follow the audio. It's not as riveting. But I saw y'all watching the second one. You saw the pressure they put on Nick Kassotis. Law, and I won't use the word lie. Law enforcement is allowed to mislead suspects in an interrogation. There's law enforcement value in doing that. You heard Agent Sands testify about the value in doing that. And they told him all kinds of things that weren't true. That he had DNA evidence at the scene. There's DNA there. You need to just confess, because we got you. Get it off your chest. DNA. Go ahead. Logging trunk identified you. Someone saw you there. Confess. Why all the pressure? Why all the pressure? Because the actual hard evidence they have that Nick Kassotis killed Mindi Kassotis is incredibly weak. I think you're looking at pretty much all of it right here, stacked in this corner of the courtroom, right? They've got these tubs. Well, we know from Nick that when they were moving around, they used tubs. Okay, they got some tubs. But what do they have that they talked about since opening? Oh my, they got a knife. There's a knife found near her body. We heard so much talk about that knife. You know, there's a rule in screenwriting and in playwriting. I'm gonna maybe get the name wrong. Something to the effect of Chekhov's rule. If you introduce a gun in the first act of a play, it better go off by the third act. The state introduces this knife, this Milwaukee knife, right off the bat. I don't know what y'all were expecting, but I know what I would have been expecting if I were y'all. I'd have been expecting to see some hard evidence tying that knife, that Milwaukee knife, to Mindi Kassotis's, I'm sorry to be so graphic, but her dismemberment.
Wow. Not even tying it to Nick. Just Mindi.
But what did you hear? The exact opposite. That knife was not used in her dismemberment. And again, to be graphic, I mean, her legs were not removed using that knife. That's not what happened. The state's own tool mark, not my expert, the state's own tool mark expert from the GBI. That knife wasn't used to remove those body parts of Mindi. Well, wait a minute. He bought a deer processing kit at Bass Pro Shops. Where's the deer processing kit? They don't have it. Don't be confused. They haven't tried to mislead you. I'm not going to ever accuse them of that. They're too good and too professional. But they went and bought another kit, same model that Nick Kassotis brought. They brought it in here. All right, tool mark expert. What about that kit? Inconclusive. All right, got a deer processing kit that's not even found at the scene, not found on Nick Kassotis, not found at the Airbnb in Savannah, not found in Lancaster, not found. So they're going to bring in another one. They're going to show it here. Inconclusive as to whether that was used. All right. Well, they must have more than that. Oh, they do. They have more than that. They have his car. His car's at the scene near where her body is found. Goes by the pumping station in one direction, that later comes back in the other direction. Other cars, as I said, oh, we're going to ignore those other cars. We don't care about those other cars. We got the husband. We don't have to worry about those cars. The Airbnb in Savannah. Okay, there must be something there, right? You don't arrest a man unless you got more than that. You don't do that to somebody. All right, Airbnb. What do they have there? There's a futon that has some of Mindi's blood on it. There's a little bit of blood that appears to have maybe been cleaned up off the floor, and a barely visible amount of blood that you can see with their special chemical substance. You can see that on the wall, a little bit. Not enough to photograph. It's so light you can't even photograph it. But you heard testimony they found a little bit there. But you know what else you heard? How was Mindi Kassotis probably murdered? She had 9 lacerations on her skull. 9. And I asked the medical examiner, there are a lot of veins that run through the skull, a lot of blood that comes up here in your skin. Oh yeah, there are. How much blood are you going to get when you strike somebody with a hard object? hard enough to do that kind of laceration. A lot of blood. A lot of blood. What about 2 lacerations? Even more blood. That was the testimony. You heard it. What about 9? That's a lot of blood. A lot of blood was not found at the Airbnb. Oh, well, wait. He cleaned it up. He did some amazing job of cleaning up all that blood. Did he buy any tarps? I didn't hear anything about that. So he cleaned all that blood up? I mean, that's not reasonable.
That was the point.
We asked the owner of the Airbnb, when you came there, did you smell cleaning products? Anything? Bleach? No, she didn't smell anything. All right. Let's keep working for the state. What else do they have? Well, he's a big old liar, right? Let's see. And a deadbeat, right? He owes his first wife $1.5 million. Doesn't give her that. Okay. So, therefore, let me think, this theory. He owes his first wife $1.5 million, so he kills his second wife. How does that work? How does that resolve anything? Okay, forget that theory. Let's try another theory. He kills Mindi so that he can run off to Pennsylvania and go woo and marry his third wife, Samantha. You kill Mindi over that? He knows how to get divorced. He did it once before. He divorced his first wife, Heather. So he knows how to get divorced. He also could just leave. But they're going to have you believe that, oh, I don't know what they're going to have you believe, but I imagine they're going to say, well, he did it so he could run off with Samantha. Does that make any sense? Now, they don't have to prove motive. I don't want to put that in your head. You're going to hear the judge tell you they don't have to prove motive. But they still have to prove that Nick Kassotis committed these crimes, the 12 counts that he is facing, beyond a reasonable doubt. That is an incredibly high standard, beyond a reasonable doubt. You may be sitting here right now thinking, I think he probably did it. I think he probably did it. That's not high enough in our country. Probably did it doesn't work. I think it's more likely than not that he did it. I really, really think he probably did it. That's my gut feeling. That doesn't cut it either. We have protections in this country. The state has an incredibly high burden to meet. They have to work so hard because they have got to show guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. You'll hear the judge explain all of this to you. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you, well, all they have is circumstantial evidence. Like if you watch movies and TV, you'll hear people say, oh, it's just circumstantial evidence. You can absolutely, as you'll hear from the judge, convict people on circumstantial evidence. But that circumstantial evidence still has to show guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And they haven't done that. They just haven't done that. So he's charged with murder. Malice murder. They haven't shown you that he murdered Mindi Kassotis. They showed you he was near where the body was at some point. But they don't have a weapon. They don't have to have a weapon, but they don't have a weapon. Where's the weapon? They don't know where she was killed. They don't know where she was dismembered. All they really have are questions. But they're going to want you to think they got all the answers, or most of them. Now, what are they going to say, I anticipate, about the answers they don't have and the questions that remain. Oh, we don't have those answers to those questions because my client did such an amazing job of hiding things, confusing things, obfuscating, trying to keep that evidence around. Well, that argument works no matter who is sitting at the defense table. It doesn't point to Mr. Kissotis. That's an argument that can be made to convict any innocent man. You need to only follow the judge's instructions, look at the evidence you've heard in here, look at what you can take in the back, and decide based on that whether he committed malice murder or felony murder. I think you're going to have difficulty doing that. And the reason why is, frankly, he didn't do these things. Let's look at the other charges. Aggravated assault. You're not going to see evidence that he assaulted Mindi. The state may say, well, just look at the lacerations on her head. That's evidence that he assaulted her. But keep in mind, when the state makes their arguments to you, no one is denying that Mindi Kassotis was horribly murdered and grotesquely dismembered and tossed away. But that is not the only thing they have to show. They have to show beyond a reasonable doubt that Nick Kassotis is the one that did that. Concealing the death of another. Someone tried to conceal her death. No denying that. You don't do the terrible things that were done to Mindi Kassotis unless you're trying to conceal someone's death. That's why you do that. Possession of a knife during commission of a felony. Well, I don't think they've shown any kind of a felony for Nick Kassotis. A knife? Yeah, he had a knife. We all have knives. He had a knife.
You call
he
that a
bought
knife?
that Milwaukee knife.
This is a knife.
That who knows where it is now. Mr. Kissotis says it burned up in his car. He bought a knife. Was that knife that he bought used in the commission of a felony? Not that the state has shown. Not beyond a reasonable doubt. The deer processing knives, again. Did he possess those? At one point, he bought them at Bass Pro Shop. During commission of a felony? Not that the state has shown. Tools for the commission of a crime? No. No. Removal of body parts from scene of death. You heard from Agent Sands they don't even know where the scene of death is because how horrible this murder was. Tampering with evidence. Obviously evidence was tampered with, but there is not sufficient evidence to show that Nick Kassotis was involved in that beyond a reasonable doubt. Now you may think I'm clinging to beyond a reasonable doubt, but I point to that because that is the standard that we have. That is the standard that this judge is going to instruct you. That is the high burden that the state has.
Thanks for tuning in, Lana. I appreciate you. Have a good evening.
Mindi Kassotis was viciously murdered and frankly butchered. Everyone should be upset and beyond distraught over that. It is I don't have the right words for how terrible that was. And then to be cast off, tossed in the woods for animals to rot. Your emotions likely are and should be running high. But I'm going to ask you to do what to me could feel like the impossible. I'm going to urge you to do this. Set the emotions aside. The state has only presented you with one person that you can make pay for Mindi Kassotis' death, my client, Nick Kassotis. So I understand the instinct for justice. I understand the instinct to want to have someone to blame, to want to have someone to hold accountable. But what I urge you to do, is to really serve justice. Really serve justice. And listen to the judge and decide, as the evidence that has been presented to you by this amazing team of prosecutors and investigators, has that risen to the level of proof beyond reasonable doubt in any of these charges? I think that if you can set aside that emotional gut reaction that we all have, especially when seeing these horrible photos, and candidly, logically, rationally assessing the evidence, you will not be able to find guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Thank you for your attention, and again, for all the time that you've committed to this case.
I thought that that closing argument was impeccable, in my opinion. Really, he basically went to every bias and flipped it on his head, in my opinion. He went and he didn't present his client as a saint. He actually said the way he's handled the case, even with the prosecution, even with highlighting their flaws during the trial, he still was like, no, they done a good job. He still highlighted, gave them all facts. I can't fault him. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they probably just sat there listening and they're like, okay, maybe we should look at the state burden and whether they have met it. And I thought that it was because of this closing argument is why there was we kind of there was more focus on Mindi's pregnancy when they were doing their cross examination of Nick. There was more focus of that even leading up to all of this to even suggest that, but for the state closing arguments, they were suggesting that he didn't do this based on their opening statements. He didn't do this because of the fact that he wanted to start a new life with somebody else. He did it because Mindi had told him she was no longer pregnant. I'm not gonna play the full closing argument. I believe I have the timestamp here. I'm not gonna play the full closing argument. I just want to go to the point in which highlights their theory of the case. Their theory of what may have happened. They have highlighted a lot of the evidence already in a lot of the materials. A lot of the evidence presented to the jury. But the most important part is, and I couldn't believe this when I was watching. It was where Laurie Baio had basically said that they had the DNA evidence that he was actually on the scene, and I was like, no, you don't. You testified that you don't have that the totes. You don't have any DNA on it. Like, we heard that testimony. I don't know. Like, I think it was even highlighted during the cross examination of Agent Sands, and even he said that they didn't have DNA tying to him, that there was no report of it. Like, this is why I felt I was really hoping that during his closing that he would have highlighted the fingernails, but maybe he didn't want to overload the fact and make it seem like he was attacking the prosecution. Maybe that was the case, but let's watch.
He didn't have access to any money. He told you that. But he was getting an $860,000 check that poof went up in flames. I submit to you, because he didn't have that money. He was telling Samantha, we're getting a house. But when he had to actually buy it, he didn't have the money. Car goes up in flames. He testified or asked questions about a recall on a police interceptor vehicle, not on his Ford Explorer. A recall that doesn't apply to the vehicle he purchased. And at first the knife was in the car, then it was, well, I think it might be somewhere else. I mean, you didn't find it there, there's another place. Well, I saw it in Pennsylvania too. And we saw the house. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, she was definitely struck. There was a bloodletting event, meaning she bled at the house in Savannah. We know that. We saw her blood. But I submit to you, her body was put to rest here in Liberty County.
The one thing I don't is that the one thing I didn't agree with the prosecution and was the fact that they said that it was highlighted already that they don't actually have the crime. Like she even said it herself, they don't have the exact where Mindi was actually killed. They don't have that fact. They don't have where she was dismembered. It's just he was there for 2 hours. That there was that he would have been in this doing all the dismembering here at the hunting club. But the one thing I definitely wanna highlight is, okay, when did Mindi die then? Because are you saying that he killed her, then put her into the vehicle, drive to the hunting club, release the body there at the hunting club? We know already that on cross-examination, he said he did agree that he did wash his car because he paid for the car wash. So we know that he was definitely at the car wash. We don't have any CCTV of it though, but we know that he was definitely there. I mean, you have CCTV of a Ford Explorer going there, and I do think that the fact in regards to his cell activity at the scene, it points him there, and her highlighting him being there for 2 hours. This is the difficulty, because when did Mindi die then? Mindi, was she in the car with him then? She has to be in the car with him. Alive at that point. She has to be. Because you don't know. You admit that you don't know where exactly she was killed. They theorized that she was killed at the Airbnb when he found out that she was pregnant. If Mindi did this at the if Nicholas did this at the facility or from the hunting club, if he did this there, you would have found blood on the floor. You found it in a tote, so that means he must have done it, put her into a tote, then drive there and leave the totes there. So maybe that's one way of looking at it, but again, you haven't doubled down to say 100% he did it when he was at the Airbnb to even transport her. This is where it becomes very muddy, at least for me. So this person, like whoever did this, if Nick is being framed, like it's an insane frame job that all of this is circumstantially happening, and he's receiving instructions to go to these places. Hard to believe, really hard to believe. It sounds like Robert Tellers all over again, because this was what the whole old guard was doing to him when they wanted to get him out of the position that that they are dressed up like him to go to the house to kill the reporter. I don't think it's gonna go far. I think it's far-fetched. It's far-fetched to believe that he didn't do it. Why would he go to the hunting club when there was no hunting? I mean, it was hunting season, but he's not a hunter. That's why that's one thing. And he was only there for 2 hours, never returned again. If it was a frequent hunter, I think that's maybe an alibi there. Maybe.
And Agent Sands said to him, it's like a puzzle. You burned some of the pieces, you threw some of them away. She was alive when he knew she was already dead. He told Samantha she was dead before she was dead. He told people she died in different ways. He told Joe West she went in on Saturday, she became septic, she got sepsis, and she died from an infection the next day. That would have been Sunday. He told her parents Thursday.
Great facts.
I made a list of some of the things that were inconsistent. Your recollection is what governs. Was it credible? Was it believable? You told me you would know how to evaluate somebody being truthful. Use your common sense. Talked about what Mr. West said, but on December 1st of 2022, or a murderer. Why was the divorce important? The divorce was important because he had to have a reason to be telling this whole Jim story to begin with. Nicholas Kassotis did not want to pay Heather Thomas 1 penny. He did not want to pay her the $1.6 million. And he didn't. And he absconded. And he told some story to the court about how he had $32 million. $32 billion. Dang. That's a lot of money. But now it's Mindi's fault. Oh, it's Mindi's fault that he doesn't have the money. Look at the records, the transcript. He blames Mindi. When there's a problem, well, either Jim did it, or now Mindi did it. Mindi met Jim, but he never looked at credentials. Apparently, Mr. Kissotis hasn't done anything. Nothing paid, ever. Cameron, nothing paid, ever. Mrs. Koyesnik. Driver's license, photoshopped. There was
More bad facts. Hold up. Let me just get to this.
next week, maybe the first week of December. When he found out his wife was dead? Really? They were remarried. And whenever there's something that he has to be held accountable, Jim told me to do it. Can't find a person that doesn't exist, I submit to you.
I submit to you.
He texted back and forth with Samantha repeatedly. Did Jim tell him what to say in every text? I submit to you there is no Jim. Jim started as a convenient reason to get away from Heather, to not pay the money. And he convinced Mindi. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, Mindi believed him. So did Cameron Nelson. So did Chris Chaplick. So did Mindi's parents. He was a decorated lieutenant, I forgot what rank he said, in the Navy. 10 years almost with the JAG. 2 tours. Of course they believed him. That's that Monday morning quarterback thing. It's easy to look at it now when you see all of this in front of you and say, who would believe that? People that didn't know all that. People that thought Nick and Mindi were telling them the truth. Mindi believed him. I submit that to you. And she didn't want to lose him. There's no ring. There's no Jim. And there was no baby. And he didn't ask about it because he knew that. I submit to you, that's why he stabbed her in the belly.
Now, this was the part that really hit me over the head, because I was like, wait a second, there was testimony in regards to Mindi getting stabbed in the belly. My memory could be wrong. I am a human being. I'm fallible to, inconsistencies. If anybody heard testimony from anybody here that Mindi was actually stabbed, or that they found stab wounds in the belly, let me know, because she has said that they found DNA that ties it back to Nicholas, and now is the stabbing of the belly. If somebody notices these inconsistencies, they might get the idea that they're being misled by the prosecution. They just might. If anyone in that jury notice any inconsistency, they might get that idea, because I can't remember that fact at all. My ears perked up when I heard. I was like, wait a second, when was that testimony ever given about being stabbed in the belly? Because how do you get defensive wounds then? How do you get defensive wounds if the stabbing is going to the belly? Or, like, she would have died. It would have been very easy to start blowing on the head without even having the defensive. This is what I mean. If he gets a not guilty verdict, it might be down to this moment right here, because it just doesn't comport with the medical examiner who gave testimony about blows to the head. How does that happen? How does that actually happen if you got stabbed in the belly? And that is just something that I was like, if you want to put away this guy, you don't have to go this far. I mean, they already have the police on record, distorting facts. Even if the jury overlooks that, it's your own prosecutor now doing it. I don't know.
He never once, in 2 hours and approximately 10 minutes in Pennsylvania, ever asked about the baby. If you just found out that your wife died by some other means, because he already knew. He never once asked about the condition of her body. I submit to you because he knew. The court's going to instruct you on the charges. I've talked about some of them: malice murder, felony murder. There are additional charges that you're going to hear as well, and those charges include venue. The court's going to instruct you.
Okay, so that was she is going to run through the charges. I just want to see how she closes it out.
She deserves. I submit to you, Mindi, she deserves your attention. This case is about her. I ask you to go in the back, look at the evidence, and come back with what is the only appropriate outcome. Guilty of all charges. Thank you.
In all fairness, like, if I am to really believe, I think the prosecution just made the state case, just made their case harder. Like, they didn't, and I really believe what just happened here is a result of just brilliant defense closing examination, because it literally, to me, it feels like she just made it up on the spot right there that Mindi was killed because she had a baby. For you to just put that testimony in there, it has been bothering me all day. It's been ringing in my ear, because I was like, wait a minute, he didn't do this. And even going through all the evidence, I was like, how would he even, we already went through it, how would he have the time to knock her out, put her into the body and drive there, likely in a totes, the vehicle gone up in flames, so of course they cannot get any evidence from the vehicle. She was mashed up to a point, yeah, like all of those things, but at the same time, it just comes down to just the fact that they didn't test the blood that they did find on the scene. She even said something that, again, I cannot remember this even being mentioned in evidence. I went through all of my notes. The blood being found under the carpet. I could not remember that. There was blood found. I believe that the testimony was there was blood found on the futon. I remember that because Doug had asked the question on cross-examination whether it was period blood. How did they know to differentiate between the two, or is that something that could possibly happen? And they say, yeah, it very likely could have been period blood, but I cannot remember blood actually being found on the carpet. Maybe I'm wrong. So if anyone, Lexi the law nerd, I know is, in my opinion, she's way more meticulous than me, in my opinion. Like, and if you've heard that testimony, let me, if anyone I heard that testimony, let me know, because I cannot remember hearing blood being found on the carpet, let alone under the carpet. It just seemed like new information that I've never heard. And if the jury has been paying attention, the prosecution bringing all this in, even though it's not evidence, it's been said the closing arguments are not evidence. They might just look at them in a bad light and just be like, you're just doing this because you really can't tie him to this. Maybe like you haven't met your burden or something like that. They might feel like he actually did this, but these things kind of sends the idea that we know we haven't met our burden. So let's just say these facts, and hopefully it plays in on their minds. Let me go through the timeline once more, and then we'll close up from here. So let's go through the timeline. Nick and Heather Thomas marries from 2009. Her name, I forgot what Nick said her name was at the time, but anyway, I don't think it really matters. But we know that the testimony around Heather Thomas, that she was apparently cheating. On June 2015, Heather says that she met her then and now husband. That at that period, on the 15th of October 2015, the divorce was granted. We know from Nick's testimony, he gave an exact date. In fact, it was 16th of September, I believe, 2015, that he had filed for the divorce. So according to the testimony from Heather, they were already separated at this point. So anyway, but she was already seeing her man. I do believe him on the testimony that she was definitely cheating on him. So I do believe that. On the 16th of October 2015, Heather marries her new husband. So my notes say there was no reaction of the blue star on the rug, but there was a reaction of blood on the floor under the rug. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Didn't know that. Did not know that. So there was blue star. Okay. Thank you for that. So there was blood on the rug. At least under it, there was a blue star reaction to blood being under the rug. So it begs the question: why would you then, at the same time double down and say we don't know where Eva was killed, why can't you commit that Eva was killed at the Airbnb? Because I did hear that they haven't committed to knowing exactly where Eva was killed or where she was dismembered. They just know that she was found at this location and Nick was there. Nick retires from the Navy in 2017. 2018, Nicholas Kassotis started having issues with his account in Virginia and reported it to the FBI. Nicholas went up and testified that this was actually in 2017. I am so glad, and I want to make this clear. We went through this yesterday. I haven't updated this because I wanted to go through it knowing Nick's testimony in mind. I just wanted to show how it would all fit into this. But he says in 2018 he started having issues with his account in Virginia and reported it to the FBI. But he says that Mindi was having issues with the account in 2017 at the fall. So that's what he said that Mindi was having. And then they had vandalism issues. That's when they made a report to the FBI. Late 2017. Okay. 4th of January 2019, and hearing was made where Nick said that he had 32 million but didn't want to pay to Eva, his first wife. Nick on December 2019, Nick and Mindi started moving around from Virginia to North Carolina. Around this time, April 2020, Nick got sick because he said on the 8th of April 2020 that and there was that Cameron Nelson had messaged him about the money he owed, and this is when he found out that Jim McIntyre was not a real FBI agent. Before I continue, I want to present my last piece of evidence on who I believe Jim McIntyre is, and this is, in my opinion, this is the most stone cold piece of evidence that I believe you cannot at all believe anything else. So this is who Jim McIntyre is, in my honest opinion. This man right here, Shannon Burgess, if that is even his real name, we already have history of this guy saying that on his LinkedIn account that he has attended this university or that university. He said that he's been in university from 2009. From 2009, still waiting accreditation to this day, still waiting to graduate from university. I believe this is Jim McIntyre, who promised him a lot of money because Jim was working with Aperture to get money from the DA Morris's office. There was money laundering going on. All of this is alleged. All of this is alleged. All of this is alleged. But that's my honest opinion. That's my honest opinion. On July 2021, Nick says in his interview that Mindi was bleeding and was taken to ER at a military base. We heard from Jim himself. He doesn't give the date in which Mindi was pregnant. He just said that on July 2021 that she had the miscarriage. She was pregnant and she had the miscarriage. So that's the only evidence that we have of anything around that time. Around March and April, Mindi informs Betsy that they're moving again after they tried to sell their house in Georgia. This was around the same time that Nick said, because they were living with Frank at this point, Frank the Fourth. So this was around the time that Nick said that Mindi was pregnant. So this would have been that time period. So Mindi was pregnant from around this time that they were living with Frank the Fourth before they had moved out. So June 2022, Nick rents Airbnb in Georgia Savannah. In June 2022, Nick receives $300K from Sony after receiving payment for his short story, and we start seeing him making purchases. But at the same time, he wasn't making purchases because he wasn't receiving money, and he was living basically still indigent or something like that. I don't know. Nicholas purchases a Ford Explorer, paying in full in cash. 8th of June 2022, Jim informed Cameron through Signal that Mindi was pregnant. So the question becomes, the state have played into this because they do have a Signal message that Jim informing that Mindi was pregnant. So if we are to believe all that has happened, we know already that he is owing money to them, and he wasn't paying, and she was seeking legal action to do it. When it was initiated, I have no idea. I don't think that question was pretty much asked. But this is a very good point to bring out here, that maybe Mindi lied to him, and that's what the state was closing with, that Mindi was so much in love with him that she didn't want to lose him, because she noticed a trend with his first wife that he left her when she couldn't give a baby. But it was quite obvious, like they had testimony in regards to her not being able to get pregnant and her getting pregnant, and how Nicholas had reacted to that. Maybe that was what that testimony was actually aiding to. But at the same time, I submit to you, at the same time, you have to consider the fact that if they're saying that Nick did this because Mindi was pregnant, there should have been, in my opinion, it validates his story about why he left her, which was for cheating, not because she couldn't get pregnant, because they were together for 6 years, which he knew. And even the wife said he knew that she couldn't get pregnant easily. That's not why. So again, Nicholas Kassotis on the 26th of July 2022, Nicholas Kassotis had a driving license issued in Georgia. It was determined to be by law enforcement that he had alterations. 16th of August 2022, Nicholas purchases a knife, latest gloves, wipes at Home Depot. He also purchased a Diet Coke as well, and other items. It wasn't just it wasn't just all of this. So he had purchased all of these things before the murder had happened. On the 24th of September 2022, Nicholas initiates a Twitter conversation with Samantha pertaining to her tweet. Then on the 9th of October 2022, Nicholas had indicated to Cameron that Mindi was going to hospital. So we're now getting to the time of the supposed murder. On the 18th of October 2022, Nicholas informs Samantha that he had lost his wife, Mindi, who was pregnant. So Samantha, from the 18th of October, was told that he has lost his wife. Nicholas says that he said this because he was already committing infidelity with a girl named Joy back in 2020, when he thought that Mindi had died at that point, and then she recovered. Again, the structure. If we are talking about the structure, it seems to hold up, because Mindi was having health. Well, according to him, Mindi was having health problems around 2020. On the 22nd of October 2022, Nicholas, through a DM, says that Mindi had died from an undiagnosed heart issue aggravated by her pregnancy. So Joy we heard testimony regarding Joy who was a supposed person that he was flirting with, he was saying that he was saying at the time that this was why he had told people that Mindi was dead. They just wanted to continue with the lie because Jim apparently was not happy with the fact that he was telling so many people. Jim, who was not an FBI agent, he told him around this time that he was not an FBI agent, but he wasn't happy that he told people that Mindi was basically alive because Mindi was the target that they were after. That Mindi was the target that they were after. I highlighted it earlier in the stream to show how Doug had basically gone back to the testimony in regards to telling Samantha that Mindi had died to show the separation of both events. But essentially, he had said that he had told this Joy person that Mindi had died, and they had to continue saying that if he was speaking to anyone outside of the immediate family. That's what he said on his testimony. So, yeah. Oh, hearing before today. Yeah. No. Yeah. Joy never existed before today. But the defense, the state made sure to bring her up that he was, that he loved Mindi so much that he was cheating on her, basically. On the 1st of November 2022, Nick had messaged Cameron that he was packing. On the 1st of November 2022, Nick had messaged Cameron saying that Mindi was getting sicker. On the 4th of November 2022, Nicholas purchased a shovel and a fiberglass hammer. On the 5th of November to the 11th of November, basically, Nicholas had informed Samantha that he was going on a road trip. This was for the 5th, 8th, 10th, and 11th of November. On the 24th of November, Mindi's dad Mindi's dad says that he sees Mindi looking sickly and was informed by Nick that he was taking her to the hospital. On the 25th of November to the 30th of November 2022, Nicholas informs the parents of Mindi that Mindi is dead. On the 28th of November 2022, Nicholas purchases a knife from Bass Pro. On the 29th of November 2022, Nicholas purchases a Milwaukee smooth blade insulation knife. On the 29th of November 2022, Nicholas was seen entering and leaving the hunting club area. He was also here for 2 hours approximately because of the CCTV footage. On the 27th to the 29th of November, it was theorized that maggots and insects likely began feasting on Mindi's body. It's interesting that on cross-examination, this was highlighted, and Nicholas didn't deny it. It was like, okay, if that's what it says, then okay, maybe that's true. On the 30th of November 2022, Mindi supposedly died on this day, according to Nicholas' interview, where he said he said he lost her on Thursday. On the 1st of December 2022, or 30th or the 1st, Frank has his hip replacement surgery. On the 1st of December 2022, he had messaged Cameron at this time as well to say that Mindi had died on Signal. He messaged on Signal saying that Mindi had died on the 1st of December 2022. He told Betsy and the family members that Mindi had died on this day when she was speaking to law enforcement. On the 2nd of December 2022, Mindi's torso was found at the hunting club. The knife was also found at the scene. On the 3rd of December 2022, Mindi's right leg was found. On the 5th of December 2022, Mindi's left leg was found in a tote after a canine search. This has got to be, in my opinion, if he did, like, if you're trying to say that Nick did this is the sloppiest. Like, to be so careful to wash the house, bear in mind, to wash the house, cover his tracks, doesn't make sense why he would leave the tote there. Why not take it with him and just burn it with the car? I mean, he took the knife. Well, he left the knife, but he left the knife deliberately. Let's say that's the case. He just leaves the knife. Then they're not gonna find him. That's what the prosecution theorized on their closing arguments. However, I submit to you that, okay, why would he leave the tote? With his experience as a prosecutor, why would he leave the tote? Just take it back to the car. You're gonna burn it anyway. Take it back to the car. Even if there's blood in the car, you're gonna burn it anyway. So that's something that I thought was interesting. On the 5th of December 2022, Nicholas reaches out to Cameron saying that Mindi died of a stroke. We told people already that she died of heart problems. So yeah, on the 7th of December 2022, Mindi's head was found buried by the K9 team. On the 11th of December, that shouldn't be there. I forgot a date. There we go. Anyway, on the 11th of December 2022, Nicholas indicates to Cameron that he had Mindi's ashes back. On the 16th of December 2022, Nicholas sent selfies and license to Samantha, his third wife, to prove his identity before meeting her. Remember the ashes? Well, he had scattered it in Savannah or something like that. He had received it in Savannah. This was around the time of January when he was traveling to St. Louis. Anyway, continuing on, but he said he had Mindi's ashes back on the 11th of December. I just thought I highlight that. On the 16th of December 2022, Nicholas sent selfies and license to Samantha, his third wife, to prove his identity before meeting her. Question: we have evidence that on the 4th of January 2023, Nicholas changes his last name from Kissotis to Stark at St. Louis, citing domestic violence. So how did he get the license to basically send to her to prove that he was Stark? How did he get that? So, I mean, I don't deny it. We saw a picture of the thing. We saw a picture of the license being sent. So I'm not denying that. It's just weird that the dates are that is basically ahead of time. On the 19th of December 2022, Nicholas informs. So they met. By the way, they actually met on the 16th of December 2022. So Samantha actually met them. Nicholas had to send the license and all those things before they actually met. Just for I clear that up. Anyway, on the 19th of December 2022, Nicholas informed Joseph West over the phone that Mindi had passed away from an infection in the hospital. On December 2022, infection. On December 2022, Agent Sands speak with Frank Bitton the 4th. On January 2023, Nicholas sends her, which is Samantha in this case, an email to prove that he worked for a company called Apis. On the 4th of January 2023, Nicholas changes his last name from Kissotis to Stark in St. Louis, citing domestic violence as a reason. On the 13th of January 2023, Nicholas a name change in Delaware to Nicholas Kassotis. Regarding the domestic violence, this was accompanied by a police report. On February 2023, Nicholas says that Jim had detected something wrong with his vehicle. On the 20th of March 2023, Nicholas and Samantha were looking for properties to purchase. Apparently, a down payment was made on a property. On the 20th of March 2023, Nicholas was admitted to hospital after his car had gone up in flames. On the 28th of March 2023, Nicholas messaged Cameron that his car had exploded and the other phone had died in a fire. On the 10th of April 2023, Nicholas and Samantha were issued their marriage license. We know that they got married on the 22nd. I believe it was 22nd, but Nick said it was 21st. But so we're gonna 21st or 22nd of April 2023. They actually got Samantha and Nick actually got married. On the 19th of April 2023, an email was sent to Betsy and others saying that Nicholas Kassotis was dead. And I think this was the birth of the theory of why he would kill Mindi and change his name. The prosecution did not actually highlight this, that he changed his name to start a new life, that we seen emails, or we heard testimony regarding emails being sent that Nicholas was dead. But yeah, that was from Betsy's testimony. On the 2nd of May 2023, Betsy communicates with Agent Sands regarding emails. On the 11th of May 2023, Agent Sands made contact with Samantha Kolesnik. On the 12th of May 2023, Nicholas Kassotis was arrested and interviewed. He was also interviewed again on the 26th of May 2023. And this is the case. That's everything. Honestly, my final thoughts. I honestly think I would not be surprised if this all comes back as guilty. I think that he's going to get the malice murder. I don't think they're gonna go for felony murder. I think they're gonna go for malice murder. Aggravated assault, they might get that in there for, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do malice murder, then not guilty on aggravated assault, not guilty on felony murder, but guilty on everything else. They might actually do it like that. I do think the jury is gonna come back with guilty based on the evidence that they have. They might deliberate for quite a while. I predict up to, I'll give it 10 hours. I'll give it 10 to 15 hours. And they're gonna come back with a guilty verdict. I think they might want to satisfy. How long do you think they would it would take? Let me know in the comments. But I think they're gonna try and satisfy or get it out of their mind that Nick was really in fear of his life, why he was moving so much. There might be talk of criminal activity. There might be talk of criminal activity in that jury room, because it does seem sketchy, and there's a lot of money here being alleged. There's a lot of money being alleged, and it's not the jury's job to solve this in any way. So I don't think they're gonna try and solve it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're thinking there's just way too many to consider, that it just doesn't make sense why Mindi would have why Nicholas would have killed Mindi. I think they might think about that for quite a bit. They might actually think about that for quite a bit. It depends on the jury instructions, in my opinion. It really depends on how it's worded to them and how to receive these charges. But could they think that he is crazy? I think it's likely, but I mean, I'm surprised. I'm not surprised, but I'm really believing that Nick was really involved in some illegal activity, because it still doesn't make sense to me why he will be on the run with this woman and for some reason he just decides to kill her in the end. I get cheating on her, but it just doesn't make sense why he would, just decide to kill her in the end. There's no dispute that he spoke with Samantha, so they didn't even try to. Yeah, so I do think that's the only one. That is the only one, because the cell towers place him at the scene. That's the only one. However, why would he leave the knife? But at the same time, not take the tote. I just wouldn't. It's the most sloppiest job. It's just for someone that was seemingly careful to make sure that the Airbnb was clean, because this is apparently where he had killed her and transported the body. For someone that was really that careful, doesn't make sense why at the final moment he just became sloppy. But that happens. That's human beings. as human beings. But there's so many inconsistencies here that I do believe, if I'm going to be honest, I do believe that the jury are going to dismiss everything leading up to this murder, because, and again, it goes back to the jury instructions. If they are not to consider premeditation, I think they're going to dismiss it because they're tired. I really get the belief that they're tired, that they don't even want to consider it, they don't even want to think about it, that they just want to dismiss that and just try and zero in on the evidence tying Nick to the murder scene. And I think that's what the defense kind of set up to play here. So that's just my 2 cents. If they were to dismiss any evidence, it would definitely be any evidence leading up to the murder, like depending on on what's read to them regarding premeditation. That's my opinion. I don't think they're gonna consider. I think they are going to consider the Airbnb, the testing that was done, and they don't have. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't know. I think the prosecution, it was the prosecution's case to lose based on how everything turned out in the end. It was their case to lose. And I really do think just that testimony alone in regards to finding DNA on the toe is just the same as what the agent said. And I just can't, for the life of me, think why would she do that? Like, why would she say she found DNA? Why would she even say that you stabbed her in the belly to get rid of the belly, to get rid of the baby? If they have anything to stuck on, or if they're considering the arguments, or if they're to give weight, they're not going to give weight to the argument, basically, because it's going to be read to them. But if they were to take this seriously, like in terms of legally, they might just disregard all of that and just focus on the evidence. And personally, only the cell towers put Nick at the scene. Only the cell towers. Only. Was he wearing gloves on the scene? I have no idea. But end of the day, based on the evidence, it's just the cell towers that put on the scene, and the receipt buying at the station. Yes, we can demand the video all day long, but if you have, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to look at the agent's opinion. If you have the cell towers putting him on the scene, why would you want to exhaust more resources going? They do have to worry about their budget as well. They don't have an endless money pit like they do in Massachusetts to hire the Blue Man Group to conduct for $400K to conduct a acting role that that they took really seriously. So there's that. So the fiberglass armor, they can look at that and be like, yeah, it's likely that he used that hammer to do the blows. When the blows was done, they might consider Doug's argument there, but at the same time, Doug did get into evidence. I do remember a couple of lawyers that I've spoken with on why they get facts into evidence and why they would have to relay all that they get into evidence. Like a good defense lawyer would relay everything that they get into evidence and speak around that, because you are reminding them what's already in the evidence, but you're giving your opinion. They might disregard your opinion, but they will definitely remember what's in evidence. So I do think Doug pointing out that she had 9 blows to her head, and that is actually in evidence that there would have been a lot of bleeding. So did he do this at the scene, or did he do this at the Airbnb? They might conclude the Airbnb based on the Blue Star test. But again, question, why we leave the tote? The jury might just decide it's not their job to try and figure that out. The jury might just decide that. Who knows? But anyway, that's all I have time for. This stream has gone on for quite a long time. Oh, wow. Yeah, and you know, yeah, sorry about that. My camera it's really hot here, so it affects my camera. But anyway, let me just close off this stream. We have been streaming for a long time, but it is the end of the trial. I will try to keep these streams short because the main idea for these streams is to help you catch up easier, but because it is the end of a trial, so if you have enjoyed my commentary on it, and I do implore you to go watch the full day. This is the one time I watch the full day. It's honestly worth it. I haven't seen a trial like this ever. This is actually, it's better than Karen Reed, in my opinion. It's actually better than Karen Reed. It's better than, on level with Deb V. Heard. But this is so unique because I never thought I would see someone get on a stand like this and be as inconsistent but still believing everything that they're saying. I just have never seen anything. You have to do this. If you have been like, I do think, like I said earlier, I do think he is going to be investigated by the feds. I do think there's going to be an investigation launched after this on him. So we shall see from the verdict. Even if he does get charged, even if he does get a verdict, I still think that there might be an investigation anyway to, of course, get him on some, maybe move him, maybe try and get him there, because like the fact that he's a former Navy, a JAG, so a former JAG. So it's just, it's just a lot to think about. This is a case that I just never thought it was gonna amount to this. I heard of the case because not because of Doug Weinstein, but it was a surprise that I was gonna cover this case, and then I was like, oh wow, he's actually doing it. I can finally get to see him in action because he was one of the lawyers for the YSL trial. But I never thought this is what we're gonna get. I never thought that this was all that was gonna come out. And the first looking for an agent named Jim McIntyre. Flipping those at this point, but but anyway, I will. Yeah, so this is definitely the craziest trial I have ever seen. But I'll close it off there. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you so much, chat, for rocking with me and going through this evidence together. It has been a long one, but I feel like it was definitely worth it to get to get a full analysis done based on what has come out today, to go through the evidence once more, to see how credible his story is, etc. Of course, he has time to practice all those things, but I feel like there was a lot that we had to cover today. Thank you so much, Rufan, and everyone for joining. Make sure you go check out the trial channel and watch the full testimony today. You watch the full closing arguments. Make sure that you also check out the playlist for the previous catch-ups if you want to see how the case has been progressing. But yeah, that's all I have for now. Make sure that you tune in. If we get a verdict, we shall definitely be talking about it. I'm trying to set up a stream where we are going to have a discussion. I'll let you guys know in time, whenever that happens. But anyway, I go by the name of Heinz, your friendly neighborhood ketchup man, and yeah, we are out of here. The case is done. The case is done. Yeah, we will see you next time on the next stream. So see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you everyone for tuning in for another Catch Up Court live stream. Make sure that you smash that like button as well as hitting that subscribe button to be notified of our future live streams. We go live regularly, bringing you case updates and recaps of ongoing trials, so make sure you hurry back on the next live stream. We also have more content on the channel that you can binge on. Check out the playlist that we have showcasing all of these contents. Without further, I go by the name of Heinz, your friendly neighborhood ketchup man, and I'll see you back in court.